Good morning, everybody. Today is our last day of our presentations. The semester 3 students are making presentations on various topics. On this 5th day, they are going to make presentations on cultural studies. Let us have a look at the topics on which they are going to make presentations. In the morning slot, we have these presenters. Jyoti will start this part, and she will be making on the shift from literature to culture, how theory changed the humanities. Dhruvika on from culture to power, 5 approaches to cultural studies. Khushi Makwana on new historicism, contextualizing texts within historical frameworks. Jai on power, media, and the truly educated person, cultural studies of Noam Chomsky's ideas. Sanket on media culture, power, globalization, and political identity, and contemporary views. All the key words should be capitalized. So media culture, C should be capital, identity, I should be capital, contemporary views, C and V also should be capitalized. Kumkum on mediated lives, how media culture shapes identity and everyday experience. Khushi Goswami on fandom culture, the power of readers and listeners. Khushi Ravia on esports as a cultural phenomenon. Trupti Hadia on global brands, consumer culture, and everyday life, how brands shape identity and desire. Rutvi on India's soft power and global cultural strategy, a cultural studies perspective. Parthiv on negotiating identity, Indian culture through the Indian and British lenses. Krupali on from silence to Renaissance, the journey of multicultural American literature. Krishna will be making it before Krupali. Okay? Krishna's presentation will be on American multiculturalism and the literary fight against racial constructs. Divya on climate fiction, Cli-Fi, through cultural studies, how contemporary environmental narratives reflect and shape cultural anxieties. Bhargav on seeing the divine in nature, cross-cultural perspectives on nature worship. And the last one for the morning slot will be by Bhumi on clothing as cultural identity, how fashion becomes a language. So we have very interesting topics. The topic sounds very good. Let us see that the presentation also will be up to the expectations. So we can start with the first presentation.
Topic is the shift from literature to culture, how theory changed the humanities. This is my personal information, table of contents, research question. How did the rise of the theory in the 1960s to 1990s, structuralism, Marxism, feminism, etc., and transform the focus on the humanities from literature to culture's hypothesis? The rise of the theory between the 1960s and 1990s through movements like structuralism, Marxism, and the feminism transformed the humanities by shifting by shifting its central focus from the interpretation of literary text to the critical analysis of cultural practices, emphasizing how meaning, ideology, and power operate across all areas of social and cultural life. Introduction. Before the 1960s, the humanities were primarily concerned with the study of literary texts, authors, and canonical works. Scholars focus on close reading, interpretations, and the aesthetic or moral value of texts, and treating literature as an autonomous and timeless domain. However, the rise of theory, including structuralism, Marxism, feminism, and the post-colonial studies, brought a significant shift. The focus expanded from simply asking what text mean, the exploring how meaning is produced, circulated, and consumed within a broader cultural, social, and political context. This change led to groundwork for the interdisciplinary field of cultural studies, and the fundamentally transformed the way of humanities approach literature and culture. From literature to theory. Traditionally, literature was considered autonomous, universal, and the timeless, valued for its aesthetic qualities and the moral insights, largely independent of social or historical context. However, the rise of critical theory in the 1970s to 1990s challenged these assumptions. Scholars began asking new questions: how decides what counts as literature, questioning the literary canon and its biases, how the power, ideology, and the history shape text, examining the influence of social, political, and the economic forces on literature. This shift led to what is often called the theory revolution in the humanities, where literature was no longer studied in isolation but as a part of a broader cultural and ideological system. The focus moved from fixed meaning to understanding how texts participate in social structures and culture process. Key theoretical movements, several theoretical movements reshaped the study of literature and culture. Structuralism and post-structuralism focus on language and science, emphasizing that meaning is not fixed but constantly differed. Key thinkers include Saussure and Derrida. Marxism views literature as a reflection of social and economic structures, showing how text both reinforces and challenges ideology and class hierarchies. Feminism examines how gender and power relations are represented in text and culture, highlighting the marginalization of women's voices. And post-colonial studies analyzes the effect of empire colonization and the cultural hybridity in literature, identity, and representation. Cultural studies expands the scope beyond high culture in include every cultural practices, media, film, fashion, music, and popular culture, showing the role in the shaping meaning and the social life. These movements collectively shifted in the humanities from a narrow focuses on text to a broad understanding of culture as a dynamic system of meaning. And literature versus culture. Traditionally, literary studies concentrated on the canon's work, the celebrated authors such as Shakespeare, Milton, and other classical writers, emphasizing their aesthetic and moral value. In contrast, the cultural studies expanded the scope in include popular culture, treating everyday practices like advertising, cinema, social media, and subcultures as worthy of scholarly attention. This shift represents a move from high culture to all cultural practices, texts, recognizing that meaning is produced not only a classical literature but also in the ordinary everyday experiences of society. By analyzing the both elite and popular forms, cultural studies help us understand how culture shaped identity, ideology, and the social norms. The humanities reimagined within the shift from literature to culture. The humanities become increasingly interdisciplinary, drawing insights from sociology, anthropology, history, philosophy, and media studies. Scholars begin asking new types of questions, moving beyond the meaning. Media studies of text to the exploring how culture operates in society. Key questions include how do culture and power interact, examine how societal structures, institutions, and ideologies influence cultural production. How does identity shape knowledge? Investigating how marginalized group experience and contribute to culture. This broader focus emphasizes that the humanities are not just a political interpreting text, but about understanding how cultural practices, institutions, and social dynamics shape human experiences. And the benefits of the shift, the move from a literature center humanities to a cultural center approach brought several significant benefits. First, democratization of knowledge. Scholarship expanded beyond elite or canonical texts, acknowledging popular culture and everyday practices as worthy of study. And second, connection with society. Humanities research begin to engage directly with politics, social issues, identity, and media, making scholarship more relevant to contemporary life, empowering marginalized voices. This shift gave women, colonized peoples, and other marginalized groups a platform, highlighting their experiences and the contribution to culture. Overall, the shift allowed the humanities to become more inclusive, socially aware, and the interdisciplinary, bridging the gap between academia and the real world cultural dynamics. And the criticisms, first, loss of the literary focus. Some scholars argue that the literature has lost its unique status and aesthetic values as attention shift towards culture at large. And second, overemphasis on theory. The rise of the complex theoretical frameworks can make humanities scholarship jargon heavy and inaccessible to broader audiences. And third, ongoing debate. There is an ongoing discussion about whether the humanities should return to close reading of text or continue expanding into the study of broader cultural practices. These critics highlight the tension between traditional literary scholarship and the broader interdisciplinary approach of cultural studies. And the final, my conclusion, the shift from literature to culture transformed the humanities into a more disciplinary and socially engaged field. Literature remains significant, but is now seen as a one of part of a wider cultural landscape. Theory has changed the focus on the study from what does this text mean and to how is meaning produced to the who benefits, emphasizing the role of power, ideology, and identity in the shaping culture and knowledge. And this is my learning outcome. By the end of this presentation, I will be able to understand how the humanities shifted from focusing on the literature to including broader culture studies. I will recognize key theories like structuralism, Marxism, feminism, and cultural studies. See the differences between literary and cultural approaches. Appreciate the disciplinary nature of modern humanities. Evaluate its benefit and criticisms, and think critically about how meaning is created and who is served. This is my references, and thank you. Now you are free and ask me a question.
So, Jyoti, my question is what social or intellectual condition led to the rise of theory in the humanities after the 1960s?
Yes, Mumi. Social and intellectual condition led to rise the theory in humanities after the 1960s. The rise of theory was influenced by political movements and such as feminism, civil rights, decolonization, and Marxism. Next.
Jyoti, my question is why did cultural studies emerge as a response to traditional literary criticism?
Yes, cultural studies emerge as a response to traditional literary criticism. The cultural studies emerge address of limitations or traditional imitations and literary criticism, and focus on the canonical works and popular forms and highlighting the ideologies, etc. Thank you. This is from my side.
Hello everyone, myself Dhruika Gohel. Today I will be presenting on my topic is From Cultural to Power, 5 Approaches to Cultural Studies. These are my personal information. These are table of contents. Research question: how do different approaches in cultural studies, Marxist, structuralist, and feminist, and post-colonial and postmodern explain the ways of cultural produces, circulates, and resist power in society? And the hypothesis is cultural both reflects and exercise power, and each cultural studies approach reveals to ideology, identity, and resistance oppress. Marxism highlights the class and economic power. Semiotics uncovers hidden meaning. Feminists expose gender power. Post-colonialism examines colonial and racial hierarchies, and postmodernism emphasizes fluid, multiple interpretation in media, secretariat cultural. Introduction. Cultural studies is an interdisciplinary field that explore how cultural shapes and reflect power, identity, and ideology. Originating in the 1960s as Birmingham Centers for Contemporary Cultural Studies, it examines both popular and working class cultural to understand how social hierarchies related to class, gender, race, and nationality are maintained or challenged. By analyzing everyday practice, media, and cultural texts, cultural studies reveals how meaning are produced, circulated, and resisted, highlighting the cultural as a site of both oppression and resistance. Cultural and power. Cultural is never natural. It is a site of struggle where power operates through language, media, institution, and ideology. Cultural studies examines how everyday practice and cultural texts reflect, reinforce, or challenge social hierarchies related to class, gender, race, and nationality. Influenced by Marxism, feminism, postcolonialism, and post-structuralism, it decodes a hidden power relation and highlights how culture can both maintain authority and serve as a space for resistance and social change. These are 5 approaches overview. First is Marxist approach. The Marxist approach views cultural as a reflection of class struggle and a tool of ideology. It argues that cultural serves the interest of the ruling class by maintaining capitalist power through shared belief and values. Karl Marx explained this through the base and the superstructure model, where the economy shapes the cultural and institution. Antonio Gramsci's ideas of hegemony shows that power works through concept. People accept ruling class ideas as a common sense. However, thinkers like Raymond Williams note that cultural can also be a form of resistance, allowing the working class to challenge domination's ideologies. In short, Marxist cultural studies sees cultural as both means of control and a space for struggle and change. Second is structuralist approach. The structuralist approach sees cultural as a system of science that communicate meaning. It argues that cultural texts like films, ads, or fashion can be read like a language to uncover hidden ideologies. Ferdinand de Saussure introduced the ideas of the signifier form and a signified meaning, showing that their connection is culturally made, not natural. Roland Barthes, its mythologists explain how everyday symbols disguise ideology message and make them seem natural. Claude Lévi-Strauss highlight binary opposition as the basis of cultural meaning. In essence, this approach reveals that cultural shapes how we think by organizing meaning through system of science. Feminist approach. The feminist approach explores how cultural reflect and reinforces gender inequality under patriarchy. It shows that cultural texts often privilege male perspective and silence women voices. Laura Mulvey's ideas of the male gaze explain how media objectifies women for male pleasure. While Judith Butler argues that gender is performed, not biologically fixed. Bell Hooks highlights intersectionality, showing that gender interacts with race, class, and sexuality in shaping experience. Overall, this approach reveals how cultural maintain patriarchal power and how feminist critique can expose and challenge it. Fourth is post-colonial approach. The post-colonial approach studies how cultural reflect power, identity, and resistance after colonialism. It explores the lasting impact of the colonizer relationship on cultural representation. Edward said the concept of Orientalism shows how the West portrayed the East as inferior to justify domination. Homi Bhama's ideas of hybridity highlights how colonial encounters create mixed identities that challenge fixed cultural boundaries. Gayatri Spivak's notions of the subaltern reveals how marginalized voices are often silenced in Domitian's narrative. Overall, this approach exposes how cultural both carriers and contents of colonial power. Last is postmodern approach. The postmodern approach views cultural as a fragmented, fluid, and shaped by media with no single truth or fixed meaning. Baudrillard's simulacra shows that media image often replace reality, creating a hyperreal world. Foucault highlights the power knowledge, showing how discourse shapes and controls society. This approach emphasizes the plurality of meaning, portraying cultural as open to multiple interpretation and constantly shifting in a media states world. Comparative summary table. The five approaches in cultural studies show how cultural relates to power. Marxist highlights the class and economic dominance. Structuralism uncovers hidden meanings. Feminists expose gender powered. Post-colonialism examines colonial and real hierarchies, and postmodernism emphasizes fluid, fragmented meanings. Together, they reveal how cultural both reflects and shape social power. These are my learning outcomes. How cultural operates as a site of power, ideology, and resistance, and how it both reflects and shapes social structures such as a class, gender, race, and colonial history. They will be able to explain the five major approaches in cultural studies: Marxist, structuralism, feminist, postcolonial, and postmodern, and recognize the key concept, thinkers, and examples associated with each. Learners will gain ability to critically analyze cultural texts and practices, identify underlying power relations, and appreciate how cultural can both reinforce dominant ideologies and provide space for resistance. Overall, they will be able to apply this perspective to interpret and evaluate cultural phenomena and socially and politically informed way. Conclusion. In conclusion, cultural is far more than mere entertainment. It is a dynamic site of power, ideology, and resistance. Each approach in cultural studies demonstrates that meaning, identity, and representation are deeply politically charged, shaped by social structures, historical contents, and power relations. Whether through class, gender, and colonial history, media, or language, cultural both reflects and challenges dominant forces. Together, this perspective reveal how cultural studies connect knowledge, ideology, and power, showing that understanding cultural is essential understanding society itself. These are my resource, and thank you. Now you feel free to ask a question.
Ruvika, my question is, what is the role of ideology in cultural studies?
Ideology in cultural studies refers to belief that sustained powers, making dominations values, and seems nature and shaping how people thinks and act. So that is the role of ideology in cultural studies.
So, Dhruvika, my question is, what does cultural studies differ from traditional literary criticism?
Traditional literary criticism focuses on aesthetic and author intent, while cultural studies examines text as cultural products shaped by power, ideology, and society. So that is the cultural studies differ from traditional literary criticism. Thank you. This is my set.
Hello everyone, my name is Khushi Makwana. Today I am dealing with the topic New Historicism, contextualizing the text within the historical framework. Personal information, table of contents, research question. How does the New Historicism by the situating the literature within the historical and the cultural frameworks reshapes our understanding of texts and their relationship with the power, ideology, and society? Hypothesis. New Historicism reveals that the literature and history are manually constitute texts are not passive reflection of the time but active participant in the sharing cultural discourses, ideologies, and the power relations. Introduction. Why the historicism? Why new historicism? New historicism emerged in the late 20th century in literary criticism as the response to purely formalist or critic approaches. It enhanced that the literal text cannot be understood in isolation. They are the extent with the cultural, political, social, and the ideological context of their time. The method speaks to the relying the literature and the history in a dynamic two-way relationship. In order a new criticism or a formality traditional, the focus was on intentional textual structure is with minimum regards to external context. The new historicism argues what the textual shapes the meaning and the interruption, but also that the text themesley participates in the shaping that the context. As the Hoover notes, the new historicism, this approach marks the shift towards integrate the literary and the historical models. The intellectual roots and the influence, the theoretical linkage, the discourse, the power, knowledge, the stems, the history of ideas, culture, history, traditional, the react to older history and the historical criticism. Stephen's Great Table and the Kathleen Gallagher as the central partitioners, the focus the insight as the central to the how the new historicism see that the power is the mediated through the text. New historicism is not a reject of history but a rethinking. It sees the history itself, the textualization and the contingent. For example, the essay "What Was the New Historicism" argues that the one of its new moves in the refusal of the clean-cut separations between the text and the context. Key concept, the core tenets of the new historicism. First, text and context are inseparable. Power, discover, and the ideology. Circular of power, subliterary, non-literary text as the part of the discourses, contingency and the historicity and the fragmentary, multiple voices comparing the discourses. The new historicism treats the context in a rich sense, not just a political event, but economic, social, religious, scientific discourses. They pay attention to the how the power is not just a top down, but the circulate the, through the institute language habits. They read around the primary text by the bringing in the document, letter, newspaper, pamphlet, legal discourses. They resist the theological histories. The Christopher Penches argues the contextualized text is something that everybody does, but new historicism politize that act. Method and strategy. How to do new historicism? Close reading of the text, paying the attention to tension, anomalous silence, locate the parallel text from the period, the identify the exclusion formations shaping the period, the map power relation operative in the context and the text, the ask for the what is the omitted or the marginalized, it's both text and context, the dialogical reading, see how the text participate in the culture, not the merely reflects it. The parallel texts are crucial. They help you to see the ideologies, the discourses, and the main text in the conservation with. The anomalies and the tensions are useful. The place where the text resists and or context dominant discourses often the reveal the underlying the tensions. The new stories are the sensitive to the what the absent in the discourses as much as what the is present. The strength and contribution what the historicism offers depend the understanding of the literature as the historically situated, the breaks down boundaries between literary and the literary non-literary texts, add the political and the ideological awareness to reading, encourage the interdisciplinary approaches like history, social, and the cultural studies, highlight the marginal voice, silence, contributions within the historical movements. It helps the avoid the narcotic readings by the marketing us more self-aware of historical difference. It opens up more textual fuller reading of the text by the taking into account the full contextual horizon. It can show the how the text not only reflects but also help shape and the transform cultural discourses. A criticism and the limitations, the challenge and critics, the relatives, the overshaped on the context, sometimes at the expense of the textual antimony, selective the historiography, the cherry picking the historical evidence, the presentium, the interpreting the passing through the modern concern, unpaying authorial agency, creativity, formal constability, difficulty in the dialectic influence, risk of the reducing literature to ideological function. Potters after the new historicism argues for the more genuinely historicize the critical practice that does not sublime the literature entirely to ideology. Some critics argue the new historicism can slip into the deterministic assumptions. Case study example, the new historicism in the practice. In the new historicism, expect the mentors, the theories, critic analyze how the dispensation, identity, and the power circulation operate in the mentor's narrative. They read the stories not only literary but along with the historical discourse of the partition, colonial legacies, and the communal violence. The stories are contextualizing with the social, political, religion discourse coexisting as the time, showing mutual shaping of the text and the context. This is the short study of demonstrate how the new historicism work outside cannot Western literature. It shows the how the small and the logical text can be intellectual history with the equal seriousness. Further example like Shakespearean and Renaissance studies, the colonial post-colonial studies, the cultural studies, hybrids, textual and historical relevance, and many more. Here, conclusion, the new historicism demonstrate that the literature cannot be spread from the historical and the cultural conditions in which it is produced by the situating by the text within the network, power, ideology, and the discourses. It helps to see literature not as a reflection of the time but also an active participant in the shaping the cultural narratives. Concluding observation, the new historicism successfully bridges the gap between the literature and the history, empathize that text and the context exist as a continuous dialogue. It challenged the national of the text as an isolated aesthetic object and the instead read it part of a larger network of power and discourses. My learning outcomes. Here are my references. And thank you. If you have any question, then feel free to ask.
My question is, how is new historicism different from Marxist criticism?
The Marxist focus on the economy and economy on power, which source of power, and the new historicism focused spread with power, culture, and many more things like it.
My question is, can new historicism be used for digital text?
Yes, I think it is used on digital text because it is apply social and social media and many more things. So it is used to digital texts also. So thank you for this is from my side.
Khushi, you need to still improve a lot. What is on the slide and what you are reading, that also is quite different. So many words are not read properly. So 10, 15 words I found, it is written something else and you are speaking something else. So this is the third semester ending. At least that clarity should be there, that what is on the screen and what you are reading. You have to, normally you are expected to now speak orally, don't read anything. But you are not even reading correctly the words and other things.
So hello everyone, myself Jay Waghani, and today I will going to deal with power, media, and the truly educated person, cultural studies of Noam Chomsky's ideas. Here are details, table of content. A research question is, how does Noam Chomsky's concept of media power explain the influence of digital and social media on public opinion in contemporary India? Second is, what role does critical education or media literacy play in helping individuals resist manipulation and develop independent thinking in today's information saturated society? Hypothesis is, in contemporary India, media functions as a powerful ideological tool that shapes public perception and political discourses. However, individuals with higher levels of critical awareness or education are more capable of recognizing and resisting these manipulative narratives, aligned with Noam Chomsky's idea of the truly educated person. So here is an introduction. Let's start with one quote of Noam Chomsky. The smart way to keep people possessive and obedient is the strictly limited the spectrum of acceptable opinion. So in today's digital era, it is not give us only information or knowledge. It is shaped our thinking and also perceive reality. And Noam Chomsky is leading a critic to media and political power, but it is controlling us not through stresses, but through the our independence thinking. It is tells us that how you think normally. And this study explores Chomsky's view of power, media, and education through a cultural studies lenses, examines how his ideas remaining deeply relevant in contemporary India's digital and media landscape. So through this, we can see example of this 2025 elections. Like at that time, there were in TVs and magazines, there were ads like ads of people's emotion and everything, but they are not focusing on larger things like jobless persons. Theoretical background. So cultural studies explores how power operates through ideology, media, and cultural representation. So here I put this Antonio Gramsci's introduced the concept of hegemony, the way ruling classes maintain control not by forcing but through cultural consents. Stuart Hall he gives encoding and decoding. So here I am giving one example that if in magazine there is come advertisement of economic, then who are the encoding person who will be happy to show this, and but decoding person who is jobless, they will be not satisfied. In manufacturing consents, Noam Chomsky and Edward S. Herman proposed the propaganda model showing how media serves elite interested through filters like ownership, advertising, and political influence. So as we see that TVs in magazines and TVs, there are so many advertisement, but they are not being against of it, because if there is a advertisement of politics, then politics is in ownership, then they are not able to being against of it and questioning them. Chomsky argues that media shapes consents, controlling what the public perceives as the truth. Media as an instrument of power. So media does not merely reflect reality, it constructs it by selecting and framing information. According to the Stuart Hall, representation in media shapes how people perceiving the world and reinforce existing power structures. Chomsky argues that this process maintains ideological control while giving an illusion of free choices. The Indian context in India, um, Indian media, there is a consolidations and political influence having raised concerns about objectively and manipulation. Issues such as media trials, paid news, and digital propaganda replaced Chomsky's idea of manufactured contents. Like in platforms like Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, there are so many things about politics. Continuous cultural impact, continuous exposure to selective media narrative shapes is the national identity, values, and public opinion. Media becomes what Louis Althusser called an ideological state, operates tools to maintain dominant ideology. So real life Indian example, there were this farmer protest in 2020 and 2021. The national media converse the farmers protest show a clear difference in farming. Some channels label at that time some channels were labeled protest as anti-national or misland, while interpreted platforms like Wire, Scroll, and Alter News pretends farmers' voice directly. This reflects Chomsky's propaganda model, where mainstream media aligns with cooperated and political power, shaping public perceptions. So, WhatsApp and social media misinformation. So, during election 2019 Lok Sabha elections, at that time in WhatsApp there were so many videos were uploaded that about goody things about politics. So algorithms amplified emotionally charges or nationalist messages, a real example of how digital media manufactures constant and controls ideology. The truly education. So Chomsky says that true education is in questioning authority, critical thinking, and seeking truth beyond appearance. If you if you are a really educated person, then you are able to questioning the authority. An educated person analyze structure of power, not just memories facts. Contrast with illustration education. Modern education offers promotes obedience over inquiry. And here is a cultural resistance through education. I give here one protest of the student educational and cultural movement of Ladakh. Here is a digital age relevance how social media memes and that all things are challenging to our critical thinking. And power of independence media, rise of alternative news sources, fact checking platforms, and citizen journals. Here I also give one example of Boom Live and all. The educated citizens in democracy, education for its intellectual independence, informed voting, civic engagement, and resistance propaganda. Okay. And conclusion, media shapes this modern culture. True education empowers individuals to question, resist manipulation, and engaging critically. So Chomsky's idea are crucial for understanding how culture and politics influence through media. We are closing it with one quote, that education is system of impinged ignorance. The task is to free the mind. Noam Chomsky. Okay, so my learning outcome is that you should also apply that as we are a student of or a digital era, or we are a digital citizens, so we should more focus. We are filled with every this things that there are so many things come second and second, there is notification are coming constantly. So I learned that from Chomsky that firstly we should cross check it, that is this information is real or it is for a manipulation. So as sir is also talk about it so many times, that we should cross check it. And this was my learning outcome. Here are references, and thank you. If you have any question, then you can ask.
Jay, my question is, what dangers arise when media becomes entertainment?
Okay, so when media is become entertainment, firstly, people will forget about thinking critically, and they will not focus in on major things like poverty and climate changes. They will focusing on these celebrities' personal life and their debates and everything. So it can be.
So, Jai, my question is, in your view, what does that truly mean to be educated in the digital era?
In my view, okay. In my view, we should not educated for only degrees. We should as I told in my learning outcome, that we should cross checking everything, and we should be constantly our mind active. And education, I want to give a thing that you only focus, if you want to being educated person, then you focus in one two things. First is you should also being curious, or also skepticism person. Okay, this was from my side. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself is Sanket Pavadia, and today's my presentation topic is media culture, power, globalization, and politics, identity, and contemporary views. This is my academic information and presentation details. table of contents. This following content we will discuss in the presentation. Let's begin with a research question and hypothesis. My research question is, how does media influence the construction of political identity and power relation through media culture in the contemporary world? And my hypothesis is a digital transformation media into a global ideological apparatus that both reinforce dominant power structure and enables new forms of culture resistance and a hybrid politics identity. Media does not merely reflect the globalization, it actively shapes culture, meanings, and politics consciousness across societies. So when we see the media, so we have to understand the digital globalization and media culture. Let me introduce briefly both. Uh, the digital globalization, the term is used to describe the process of digital connectedness and interdependences that been greatly accelerated and facilitated by digital technologies and the internet. It refers to the global interaction of a digital system, data, and information flows, and transcending the geopolitical boundaries and transforming various aspects of society, economy, culture, and communication. And media culture. So, in a media culture, refers to the diverse system of channels and communications such as print, broadcast, digital, and social platforms, through the which ideas, information, and cultural meanings are produced, circulated, and interpreted. And in a cultural studies, media is understood as a space of representation where ideology, values, and identities are constantly created and constanted. Uh, so let's start. The media is a Marxist approach. So when we talk about the power of a media, so we see the Marxist approach. So it is divided into three approaches: structuralist approach, political economic approach, and cultural approach. So let's discuss one. So a structuralist approach to examine the sign in the media to show that the media is the inclination to serve one of the dominant group. So those are the dominant group of the media. And another is a political economic approach that see the economic factor influence on politics. Also, we can see in the media. And the third one is a culturalist approach that see that the media has the powerful impact in the constructing public awareness. And this photo, we can see the both pluralist versus Marxist. So in the media, we can see the two type of differences: pluralistic and Marxist. And key points that we can see in the creative, in a pluralist, we can see the creative, free, and original information news in a pluralist media, while Marxist view, we can see the production of standardized and control. So someone very dominant over the media, we can see in the Marxist approaches. And contents, we can see the diverse and responsive, while Marxism, we can see the selective and specific by owners. Studies of media structuralism, economic and political media. And so in a media structuralism, so as we all know about Sashore said his contribution on structuralism, that he gave the idea of how we can see in the structure view. So in a media, we can see the language includes the language parallel, stigmatic, paradigmatic, synchronics, diachronics, and signified concept of language in the media. And in a media also, the language is a part of social life, and it's also the function of determined by the rules built by the society. Another is economic political media. So Vicente Mosco defined the political economy as the study of social relationship, especially the power relation that construct the interconnection between the production, distribution, and consumption of communication resource. And another thing is Golding and Murdoch describe it as the interplay between the economic and symbolic dimension. And another three approaches of media, that instrumental, structuralist, and constructive. In instrumental, media is a tool of the ruling class, and structuralist media shaped by structure, power, and institutional rules. And constructive media is influenced by social and cultural factor, not rigid structure. So this is of the media structure and power politics. Three metaphors for media. In one article, I found that the three metaphors of media. First one is a medium as a vessel. So media is a vessel to continue that hold the send important content. So in a media, we can see the how their view focus on messages, content, not only from the medium itself. For example, the newspaper, television, internet is a carrier of the information. Another metaphor is a medium as a language. So in this, we can see the each medium has its own grammar set in codes and expressing their understanding meaning. And the media are also the language that shape the how ideas are formed and communicated. And media change with the symbol, style, and structure unique in each mediums. In a language, we can say that this kind of information. And last one is medium as an environment. So each medium creates a unique social environment that shape the how experience the world. And media is also not just as a tool but is the transformation social behavior and relationship. And the digital media blurs the boundaries between public and private, local and global life. We can see in the medium as an environment. Another thing is a Stottholz's concept of cultural studies. In media, we can see the cultural practice as signifying practice on a media. So cultural practice in a society produce the meaning, and culture is understood to share social meaning, how people interpret the world and life. And the language is not a neutral medium for informing meaning. It is created through the social system of science. We can see in the Stottholz's concept of cultural studies. And another thing is a representation, how the representation in a media, on a media. Representation is show the how world is socially constructed and represent to us in a meaningful way. And meanings are attached to the sounds, writing, images, and symbols in a media culture. And another thing we can see in the media that it is emphasis on materialism and non-reductionism, showing culture has its own rules and practice beyond the economics. Articulation, in the articulation of media, we can see the theorize the relationship among the components of social information, and it's connect the culture, politics, economy, explaining how people and meaning are linked. And Stottholz also used the articulation to show the how culture takes expressing the reproduction of social relationship. Cultural study and power structure. So in a cultural study and power structure, we can see the how power connect with social relationship. Power is always at every level of social relationship, and cultural study examine the how power operates through the everyday culture, language, and representation. One article I found that it is that notes that media culture provides a material through which people construct their sense, class, and race and gender. However, cultural study emphasizes the resist as showing how individual subculture represent the challenge dominate meaning. And media is ideological parties is also connect with how dominance of media or of society. Globalization and the reconfiguration culture. So in a globalization and reconfiguration of culture, we can see the globalization is not a simply hegemonic. It is a two-way process where global and local culture interaction. This interaction produced by hybrid identity, where global trends merge with local interaction. So in a globalization, we can see the merge of global and local in a globalization. And another thing is we found that in a Bollywood films today adopted global aesthetic while narrating local issues. And a globalization also, therefore, it's one directional. It's a reconfiguration where both global and local continuously reshape each other current society. And one another contemporary example I found that Sabarmati report. It is also example of the how politics control over media. In a film, we can see so the film serves as a contemporary example of political influence over media, and it's explored the how narrative about the 2002 Gujarat train burning are shaped by political power and censorship. And the film demonstrates the media is not always objective. It's offer the reflective government control and ideological framing through the storytelling, movie raises and questioning about truth, representation, nation identity, showing how media constructed collective memories and political consciousness. Conclusion. So ultimately, the media, we can see the how in a both way how power controlled by society and other things. And in a media study, we also see the connection between the power, culture, and identity influencing how ideas are produced and stood through representation and ideological media not only reflect reality but also creates its meaning. It is central to understanding cultural and politics today. These are my references. Thank you, everyone. Now you are free to ask questions.
How does the media shape political identity?
So, in a media shape political identity through various platforms or various types of media. In a social media, we often found that someone creates a meme on that, someone create a cartooning on that, or someone create some quote, or someone create their own thoughts that shape the political identity in a media.
Sanket, my question is, how does Marxism explain media power?
Okay, so Marxism explain media power through their controlling, through the control of news, control of various platforms. Like they have power to control, dominant power to whatever they want to show. So this kind of we can see the political power in the media.
So, hello everyone. In the last day of presentation, I'm going to discuss meditate lives, how media culture shapes identity and everyday experiences. Academic information, table of content. My research question was that how does media culture shape individual identity and everyday experience in contemporary society? So, hypothesis: media culture shapes identity and everyday experience by influencing how individual performance and present themselves online, creating the curated and the audience driven version of the self. Daily media interaction act as a modern ritual that connect people to society while also affecting emotional well-being, social perception and growth dynamics. Global media and digital platforms enable cultural exchange and hybrid identities. They can also reinforce conformity, fragmentation, and performative behaviors. Thus, media simultaneously empowers individual and communities while supplying discipline, social norms, and the personal expression. Introduction: like in modern society, media is become a central force shaping how people live, think, and related to another things. Like Nick Cowdry argues that media is not just about communication, but also how everyday practice and organized through the media institution and technologies. Like media rituals such as scrolling, sharing, or linking have become an essential habits that define our social existence. Raymond Williams said that reminds us that culture is ordinary, meaning the media we use daily, from television to social media, from part of our ordinary culture life. Media as a culture architecture. Like Luren Rosman described mass media as a cultural architect that build collective imagination and reinforce dominance value. Media does not merely reflect society; it's construct it by creating shared idea of beauty, success, and normality. Advertising, film, and the television spread powerful culture symbols that influence how we define ourselves and others. This aligns with cultural study, belief that media is a site where ideology and identity intersect. Like digitalization in everyday life. According to Karnikova, like digital technologies have completely transformed human routine. Smartphones, streaming, and social platform blurred the line between the private and public life.
People now live through the screens, using media for work, entertainment, communication, and self-expression. This constant connectivity produces both freedom and dependence. Also, Kernikova said, emphasized that media has become a permanent companion in everyday life, shaping behavior, relationship, and even emotional well-being. The mediated self and digital identity. Like Aaron Bellix explained that social media creates a performative identity. People curate identity version of themselves for an imagined audience. This leads to what he calls the supergo of the digital self, where individuals constantly self-monitoring to fit online expectations, like comments and followers act as emotional rewards, shaping how individuals value themselves. Also, we all know that how younger, like Gen Z, are more affected that their followers, like if we are not giving them likes or comments, they maybe go into the depression as well. Like identity become a fluid, partial, and dependent on visibility. Like cultural studies sees this as a new form of subjectivity, where the self is mediated through the technology. A media power and group dynamics. Like Tom Williams explore how social media forms belief based on nations or tribes, or like minded users. Algorithms and the group norms rewards people for showing loyalty to shared ideas, making platforms more polarized. This reflects Sultan Hall's theory that media structure influence how audience interrupt meaning, reinforce collective identity while including others. Belix also linked this to careful culture, where users avoid expressing dissenting opinion due to fear or social backlash. Media framing and public perception. Like media not only inform but frame how society perceives events, identity, and moral values. Like Rothman's notes that mass media select prioritizes certain narratives, simplifying complex realities to into stories that support existing ideologies. For example, like youth activism or feminist protests are often portrayed as either noble or disruptive, depending on political bias or ownership of the media outlet. Like Cowdrey explained that framing shape our moral and political imagination, influencing how people understanding issue like justice, identity, and belonging them. There is a one picture which is about Friday future, which is a very important movement happen when the person Greta Thunberg, who is she's not going to school Friday, and start this movement uh, to save. Also, that in India, like a media from climate activists like Disha Ravi is either media claim that she's either patriot or the anti-national, depend on the channel's ideology. So media has their power, that how shows the people in a good manner or in a bad manner. So it's showing that framing media rituals and the ordinary. Glaudra introduced the concept of media rituals, like meaning the daily practices, like checking news updates, posting selfies, or sharing memes that connect individuals or wider social meanings. This small action creates a sense of belonging and acts as a modern culture uh, ceremonies, similarly to traditional community gathering. Williams highlights that culture exists not only in art or literature, but in everyday behavior, and media now mediate that everyday life. Contemporary example, like everyday acts like posting Instagram story about the festivals or political events, function as a digital rituals. For example, during the Diwali or Pride Month, users share posts their express identity and solitary, transforming personal expression into collective participation. emotional and psychological impact. Also the internet encourage certain and perfection and approval seeking, also leading people to curate idea version of themselves to gain validation through the like or comments. Also from cultural studies perspective, like media play a dual role. It empowers individual of or offering platform for expression. It also discipline them through the social expectation of how one should appear and behave. Here are the example, like phenomenon of Instagram burnout, like among influencer and everyday users, show how emotional labor is tied to online visibility. Globalization and media flow, it's all about like waste and filters promoting and consumer and culture sameness. Also platform like Netflix, YouTube, it's a globalized culture. Media and social changes, like hashtag movement, like hashtag me too, like hashtag Black Lives Matter and Dalit Lives Matter, show how digital space can expose injustice and build solidarity across borders. Here the conclusion, like the media plays central role in the shaping identity, culture, and the everyday life. Also online platforms encourage individuals to curate and perform their identities, influencing both how they see themselves and how they are perceived by the others. Daily interaction with media act as modern ritual, connecting people to society and creating shared meaning. Also, it can also lead to the homogenization and the reinforce certain social norms. Like media empowers marginalized voice and support activism, but it can be performative and fragmented, limiting meaningful engagement. Understanding media critically allows the individual to navigate their identities, culture, participation, and social interaction more conscious and effectively. Here the learning outcome, reference, and thank you. If you have any question, then feel free to ask.
My question is, how does digital media shape identity and behavior?
So, digital media has that power to shape identity and behavior. Like when it has a two side, good or bad. Like when you follow good things, then it is okay. You learn something good from the digital platform, then it is okay, it's good. But when you start bad use, like when you compare yourself with others, others, and blindly follow them, then it is not a good idea. So that digital media has that power to control like a people's mind. When once you are addicted with that, then easily social media's platforms social media platforms intentionally or intentionally controls you. So yeah.
Kumkum, my question is, how does media framing affect public opinion?
So also, as I mentioned in my presentation, like media also have that power that how to give information to people. Like when in a news channel have any news, so when people listen that and think in that manner, they are not go beyond that that what is true or what is wrong. Also media has that power to see people that they are their personality, it is good or not. As in the contemporary time, we all are known that how social like how media, like Godi media portrayed our politics leader in a good manner. They cannot ask or question them. So it is that media has that power how to portray people's identity and their works. So yeah, this is from my side. Thank you. Hello everyone, myself Khushi Goswami. Today's my presentation topic is fandom culture, the power of reader and listeners, and how literature and music fans create a meaning, community, and the change in this culture. These are my academic details and presentation details. These are the points which I'm going to discuss in this presentation. My research question is, how do fandom communities in literature and music construct, negotiate, and challenge meaning through digital participation in the age of social media? And what rhetorical or linguistic patterns are visible in online fan interaction, like Taylor Swift's Easter egg hunts and hashtag Read J.K. Rowling's debates? And the hypothesis is, in the digital age, fandom communities in literature and music acts as a collective space of meaning make, where fans interrupt and debate culture text through humor, irony, and argumentation. Here are examples like Taylor Swift's Easter egg fandom and the hashtag Read J.K. Rowling movement show how participatory culture turns audience into co-authors who both celebrate and challenge creators. What is fandom culture? So fandom comes from the word fanatic, and means it means a group of people deeply passionate about culture, text, or a book, music, or a film. So in modern fandom, fans do much more than admire. So they create art or write a story, and also put their thoughts about the particular work or songs on posted it on social media. So internet has transformed these into participatory culture, and it meaning that everyone can contribute it and shape for their communities. So here I put example of Taylor Swift lyric theory, and also Taylor Swift fans are always eager to find the meaning of Easter egg in their songs or lyrics. These are the theoretical foundation. So several cultural theories help us to understand fandom. Roland Barthes, the work Death of Author, there he explained a meaning is created by readers, not fixed by author. So here, for instance, fans of Harry Potter reinterpret without Rowling's control. And another theory of Henry Jenkins, textual poachers, so in which he describes fans as active participants who poach from the original text to make their own interpretation. Then another is John Fix show popular culture as a space where ordinary people resist mainstream power through creativity. And the other one is Pierre Bourdieu's cultural capital. So it describes the knowledge and insider status in fandom gives persist in knowledge hidden reference. And the last one theory is by Noam Chomsky's media power. So it reminds us that media companions can shape fan behavior through marketing and algorithm. So all these theory together shows that fandom is both creative and controlled. Fandom in the music. So music fandoms are some stronger community online. So fans are emotionally connected with the artist and promoted and decode works of particular art. So for example, Taylor Swift's Easter eggs, people used to decoding the lyrics and theory in meaning of the Easter egg in their works. And the community of Taylor Swift fan known as Swifties, and the other one is the BTS army. So that people uses social media to promote music and even organize a charity like like the love myself and UNICEF commit. So this way they show that music fandom are not only about listening, they are about share interpretation. And even earlier Bach's Bethlehemia in 1960 shows how fans can influence pop culture. Here I put one case study of Taylor Swift and the Easter egg culture. So in this case, I put one article by Whiteside. So according to Amy Whiteside's Taylor Swift fan turn music listening into a social game, and they look for hidden meaning of Easter egg so in her songs, video, or social media post. So these create interactive storytelling between artist and audience. So fan discuss theory on TikTok and the Reddit platform. So according to Whiteside research, he says fans act as a detective and constructing communal meaning. So fans are eager to know about artist or author's life. They always Easter eggs hunting in a theoretical game of argument. So and also build a parasocial intimacy in fans feel they know about Taylor. Fandom culture in literature. So fandom in literature has existed long before the internet. In the case of Arthur Doyle, kill Sherlock Holmes, and reader protested when Cannon killed Holmes. And in the modern literacy fandom, thrive online through fan fiction, art, and shipping. So for instance, Harry Potter fan created thousands of fan fiction, sometimes changing the gender role or love story to express themselves. And the another is Twilling. It inspired 15 Shades of Grey and fan fiction turned in the novel. So these way fandom culture spreading in literature also. Here I put one case study of hashtag Reap J.K. Rowling's. So Twitter trend after Rowling's controversial comments on gender identity. So this hashtag began as a reaction to J.K. Rowling's public comments about gender identity, and fan used it hashtag not to literary wish to her harm, but to kill her authority over Harry Potter. And here I case study through the article of Ravel study. It shows that tweets under these hashtag uses humors, memes, and irony similar to Swift's playful style. So it reflects Rolla Barthes' idea, the death of author, where meaning belongs to the reader. And some fans defended Rowling, other attacked her views. So these also related fandom division and toxicity. These are the cross culture and multilingual fandoms. So fandom today hold a real social media and cultural power. So it is not limited to English, only English and Western culture, but in South Korea or in the Japan also, we all know about K-pop fandom and anime. And in even Bollywood fandom also. These are the fandom as a social culture and power. So fandom in today real social media culture. So they can promote activism and raise money. Even for instance, BTS Army do this kind of concert to supporting their nation. So this way they do this kind of works for their nation. These are the positive sides and negative sides of fandom. So they build creativity and community, and also it's a harm to toxic behavior of peoples and like cancel culture. And so for instance, here I put Swift's defending Taylor against critics, and J.K. Rowling's controversy showing division and online hostility. In conclusion, to conclude, fandom culture changes how we understand art, and it turns reader and listener into co-authors who interpret, remix, and debates meaning. So social media platforms give fans a new way to express creativity and build community. So at same time, fandom reflect larger issue like power, identity, and media culture. So the key takeaway is that fandom is not no longer a side of activity; it's a new form of cultural production, and that reshape literature and music. These are my learning outcomes. Understand how fandom culture transforms a reader and listener into active participant, and analyze how humor, irony, and shape the communication digital platforms, and recognize the global and social dimension of fandom and how it connects art, identity, and in digital age. These are my references, and thank you. If you guys have any question, feel free to ask. So, Khushi, my question is to you that how does theories like Barthes and Jenkins help us understand fandom? So, theories of Roland Barthes explain. He is explaining that theory like readers have power to interpret their own meaning beyond the author's intention, and the Jenkins theory is about the participatory culture. So fans are a participatory audience, so they can create creative work of art regarding the literature or music. So these both theory help us to fandom culture. Fandom culture is collective or active. So these both help in the fandom.
My question is, how has social media changed fandom culture?
Social media change fandom culture completely from silent followers to become active regarding their author or artist. Like they can create their own memes or on stories or song and posted in the social media. So social platforms like Twitter or Snapchat or Instagram or WhatsApp, many others. So on that, social media gave the space to fan communities, and they shape their fan culture this way. So thank you. This is from my side.
So hello everyone, myself Kushi Ravya, and my today's topic is esports as a cultural phenomenon. Is my personal information, table of contents, and my research question is: to what extent does formal state recognition and regulations influence the perceived legitimacy and social acceptance of esports as a cultural phenomenon? Hypothesis is the implementation of formal regulatory frameworks that disincentivize and promote esports will lead to a statistically significant increase in its perceived legitimacy and social acceptance among the general public compared to periods or regions without such a frameworks. Introduction: esports has undergone a meteoric rise, evolving from a global culture and economic powerhouse. It is no longer just about playing games. It is a complex phenomenon that is reshaping entertainment, foraging powerful online communities, and challenging our very definition of sport. And however, this rapid growth created a regulatory gray area blurring these lines between legitimate competitive gaming and harmful online betting. And the recent promotions and regulations of online gaming act 2025 in Indian marks a pivotal moment and formally recognizing esports as a legitimate sports while banning predatory money games. What is esports? So esports is the activity of playing computer games against other people on internet, often for money and often watched by other people using the internet and sometimes as a special organized events. And it's become a major industry as some of the top gamers around the world battle each other in the wide range of games. The cultural significance of esports is a mainstream expenses and integration into major multi-sports and events like the Asian Games and the Olympic virtual series and educational recognition. Universities worldwide now offer esports scholarship and varsity teams and legitimize it as a skill-based activity. And media and entertainment themes are prevalent in mainstream media, while platforms like Twitch had created entirely new forms of entertainment and celebrity. And the esports ecosystem is a complex network of value creation and business of ecosystem is comprised in interdependent actors and audience and consumers are the central driving force of esports ecosystem. And professional creators are player streamers and shoutcasters and uh, uh, non-endemic stakeholders is a mainstream sponsors, and this group interact to co-create value. The cultural servicescape is where culture happens is online and offline. So online platforms like Twitch, YouTube, and in-game social hubs, and offline is the live arena events, LAN parties, and the esports bar. From there, media engagement, communication, and community building masterlies. Power of community and social identity is building digital tribes, fandom and belonging. And these digital tribes develop their own unique norm, values, language, and rituals. And esports also fostering social capital and well-being, because social capital participants have bullied value social networks based on trust and shared norms. And active participant engaging as a player, streamer, or community organizer is a significant predictor or building social capital. And its well-being outcome is a connection bullet through esports, so positive relationship with social connection and subjective well-being. The imperative for regulation and addressing the harm. In August 2025, Indian government is passed one PIB bill to rules of regulation for these esports. Why the bill was needed? Curbing the negative impacts. It's addiction and final yun. Online money games are designed to encourage compulsive, and this lead to devastating personal saving loss and pushed families into debt and distress. And many people are suffering for mental health crisis. And national security, it's and illegal activities are because of that government are passed this bill for prevents addictions, stops financial fraud, protects families, and strengthens national security. In the imperative force regulations, in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023, they in this bill they passed section 111 penalizes unlawful economic activities and cyber crimes, and section 112 prescribes punishment for unauthorized betting and gambling, and offenders face a minimum of 1 year imprisonment and extendable up to 7 years along with fines, and also encouraging healthy alternatives. It's the bill deliberately promotes positive digital engagement, and it provides a clear legal pathway to support, and is esport recognized as a legitimate competitive sports, and for social and educational games it's encouraged for skill development and safe recreation. In the Indian context and new era of legitimacy, it's a formal recognition and promotions. India's Promotion and Regulation of Online Gaming Act 2025 creates a clear national framework, and it implicitly promotes esports by case study of the German Bundesliga, how traditional sports club embrace esports. Traditional football clubs face a paradox uploading traditions and while it's tomorrow's fans. And also challenges and debates because esports have a dark side and also legitimate debates and cultural challenges, and also economic scale and audience is uh, rapid revenue growth, and industry has experienced explosive growth with revenues project and the billions dollars. And this blue whale suicide challenge, it's a online organization game in Russia, and they gave a task set of 50 tasks over 50 days, and challenges then the first, these are the tasks. Then first they said woke up in the middle of the night, and day by day they grow their task more sinister, like this stand on the ledge of a tower block, cut a veil into your arm. And final stage is like demand that users kill themselves. How they manipulate gamers like this. And in 2015 case of Russian teenager Rina Plenkova, which was mythologized in online forums where teens discussed depression and suicide, often using blue whale imagery. And for national security, Indian government also banned PUBG in 2020 and Free Fire in 2022. Now it's come back, but with regulations. This is my learning outcomes and conclusion. Esports has firmly established itself as a transformative culture phenomenon that extends far beyond mere entertainment. It represents a complex ecosystem that fosters global communities, forges new identities, and generates significant social value through its unique digital and physical spaces. The formal recognition and regulatory frameworks now emerging, such as India's 2025 Act, and alongside its ongoing sportification through traditional sports structures, confirm its legitimacy and enduring presence. While challenges remain, esports has undeniably evolved from the niche instance into a permanent and influences force in 21st century culture, and fundamentally reshaping how we understand sports community and digital engagement in the modern era. These are my references. Thank you. If you have any question, then feel free to ask.
So, Khushi, my question is to you that can esports can be considered a valid form of artistic expression similar to film or music?
Yes, is valid in multiple levels because sports is and games is also digital form of art, and it's requiring creativities.
Khushi, my question is how might esports serve as a gateway for digital literacy, career, and technology?
Yes, esport serves a powerful gateway from these esports. You can also learn about software, hardware, and networking, and also the ecosystem is creates your career not only in playing but also in production, marketing, analysis, and uh, in other area. So this is from my side. Thank you.
Hello everyone. In today's last day of our presentation, my topic is global brands, consumer culture, and everyday life. How brands shape identity and our desire. So these are my personal informations, table of contents, and my research question. How do global brands construct and influence consumer identity and desire through cultural meaning in everyday life? And hypothesis is global brands functions as a cultural producers that embed symbolic meanings into their products, enabling consumer to express identity and signal social belongings and internalize desires shaped by market ideology. So ultimately this global brands or through their advertisement they make us feel, make us dream, and they led to do action that what really we want to be by buying those products. So brands can be considered as a cultural products. They are tangible public representation of meanings and ideas shared in culture. So ultimately people wants to be part of the culture going in market, so they buy a product for that. And consumer culture simply means that buying and using product is not only about money, it's measure a social activity where we discover, build, and show the world who we are through the things we own. And global brands translate their economic function of act as cultural architect. And through the lens of consumer cultural theories, brands like Nike and Gucci becomes active creator of symbolic meaning and supplying individuals with the tools necessary for self expression and social signaling. So cultural lens on consumption. Consumer culture, as discussed previously, this is not just economic activity but cultural practice that addresses socio-cultural, experimental, and symbolic ideological aspect of human life. And it is a culture. Brands are cultural product they are developed as a conveyor of emotion for the people. And it also build and manage their cultural equity to influence daily life and shaping personality, identity, and generating desire. So brands in everyday life mediating lifestyles. Global brands permit daily routines like brands mediate lifestyle choices across our clothing, smartphone, foods, social culture interaction, etc. So brands like Apple, which conveys value of creativity and modernity and premium design. Then luxurious brands like Gucci, these all are leverage potent cultural symbol which signalizing a high status also. So brands as cultural text and ideology. So brands as a culture, brands can be considered as a cultural text, like it loaded with meanings that consumer actively interpret. And brands with cultural authority are judged worthy of authoring cultural stories that often reflect society and desire and anxieties. Brands also seen as a sign also, like they depends on consumers cultural perception of meaning and worth. Like Coca-Cola historically is it is positioned as a symbol of happiness, shared moments, and global connectedness. So consumer culture and identity, self-expression. So brands are fundamental mean of consumer self-expression. Like by buying those brands products, we want to somehow we want to somehow show our self-expression. And example of identity signaling, like social class and status, purchasing Rolex or these kinds of product signalizing high status. And it's symbolically signaling effect of contributes to the fulfillment of identity needs and the desire for self expansion. Whereas if we see through the ethical identity, like brands like Patagonia signalizing ethical identity alignment with specifically environmental values. So it reinforces identity. When we see the brands through globalization, localization, and cultural conflict. So the global challenge, like brand must be operate in a multicultural market where consumers are knowledgeable about different culture. Where globalization mean the strategy of incorporating local culture elements to improve brands value. Brands like McDonald's in their menu they added make aloo tikki burger in India. So through this mixing of both the things, they ultimately created value and reach to the people. So brands are successful when they their cultural meanings reinforces their existence local identity. And they face backlash when they are perceived as a threat or are seen as a culturally intrusive. And media advertisement and creation of desire. So this thing this thing plays a major role for advertising brands. So they create a desire and aspiration to by associating products with desired, which may be unattainable and for personal life of the people. And the mechanism of signaling. So the symbolic nature of brands deployed through media leads to enhanced sense of well-being by signaling self-expansion and fulfilling identity need also. So here I have connected this with this Great Gatsby. So how he symbolizes this idealization of the past and his imaginative for construction of desire for materialistic things. Through this quote, we find that. So culture, critical perspective, power, ideology, and ethics. So cultural studies demands a critical and rigorous analysis of marketplace, so that we cannot fall into the trap of marketing. And over commercialization and ideology, we must be thinking logically for that. And ethical cultural concern like culture appropriation, use of local culture elements by global brand, as discussed again. And it should not reinforces the capitalist ideology that equates consumption with self-worth and perpetuates social and economic inequality. Brands also are seen as storytellers of culture, as example given here. So, in conclusion, global brands are key cultural architects that transcend their economic role. Using consumer culture theory, they acquire cultural authority to create symbolic meaning. So, this means brands are essential tool for identity, helping people express themselves and defining social norms. Ultimately, brands are central to the modern life by bridging global aspiration with the need for local belonging. These are my learning outcome, like buying also shapes identity. They are as brands as a tool, and they also tells us stories. We should think global and act local, like we should be also critical when buying. So these are my references, and thank you. Now questions are welcome.
My question is, what practical actions can consumer take to truly de-romanticize the market in their daily lives?
So when we talk about consumer and de-romanticizing to the of the market, so first we should see their false myth about the or superficial myths, and we should buy what we really need rather than to showing for our status and to be a part of that society. Yes.
Trupti, my question is, in the context of cultural psychology of globalization, how do consumers who identify with multiple cultures evaluate brands differently?
So the role of when we talk of consumer, so we have a question of buying global or local things. So the thing is that when we see the ground reality, we will buy product locally also, if they are affordable and have the same quality of the global product also. So we should think consciously, and then we should see that what should we buy and from where to buy, and to what extent we should buy. So these are from my side. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. Myself Ruti Pal. My today's presentation topic is India's soft power and global cultural strategy, a cultural studies perspective. Here is my academic information, table of content, and research question and hypothesis. My research question is, how does India utilize culture and media as the instrument of soft power to shape its global image and influence while balancing cultural nationalism with democratic inclusivity? And hypothesis is, India's soft power strength lies in its ability to merge tradition with modernity, projecting a civilizational yet progressive identity. However, the politicization of culture and rise of popularist narratives may limit its universal appeal unless anchored in pluralism and authenticity.
and the introduction, the interdisciplinary lens, cultural and power. Culture is just a song and isn't just a song and dance. It is a tool where for example, when a country's movie become a popular worldwide, they make popular people like that country more, which is form of power. And concept of the soft power. This is the power of attraction. Think of like it like a popular kid in school. Everyone wants to be friends with, and people are drawn to their style, not force. And identity negotiation. This is like a person who grew up in the US with Indian parents. They might love celebrating Thanksgiving, but also Diwali, blending both identities. And Indians ranked 29 in 2024 Brand Finance Global Soft Power Index, showing a steadily rise in perception for cultural diplomacy and heritage influence. A theoretical foundation, Williams culture materialism. Culture is everything. Culture is not just art. It's the whole way we live. For example, the fact that India has many public holidays for different religions. It is the culture of diversity. And economics and culture. Making a movie is not just art. Is a business. When the government gave Bollywood industry's status, it was like giving it's a business loan, helping it grow and spread worldwide. And Ministry of External Affairs report said the cultural diplomacy is a core instrumental of India's foreign policy. And the power and identity in cultural relationship. Bollywood roles. Bollywood is like a mirror that shows the India who they are, but it also helps shape that image. Diaspora's role. An Indian living in London might watch a Bollywood film or to feel connected to home, using it to navigate their dual identity. And global comparison. This is similar to how K-pop makes people around the world interested in South Korea and wants to learn Korean. India and for example, we can say the India and China are like two talented siblings. They compare themselves to each others and have a complicated relationship based on both past figure and future opportunities. Media as a tool of political power, global parallels. Media ownership power. If you own a TV channel, media is a power. If you own a TV channel, you decide what news to show, and it's like being the editor of the school newspaper and choosing which stories feature. For example, NDTV. The equivalent of NDTV is like one company buying a major news channel, leading to concern that the news might now favor for the government. And global pattern is this happens everywhere. Fox News in the US is known for supporting Republicans, just as the Sun in the UK supported Brexit. And cultural studies, theories in action, new historicism. A movie from 19th about love might be simple, but a recent movie like Article 15 directly talk about caste politics, reflecting today's social issue. And post-colonial theory. RRR is like a superhero fantasy where India's beat their British colonizer. It's rewriting history in a more empowering way. Cultural materialism. The government supporting the film industry is like giving a booster rocket or a satellite. It helps Indian culture reach a global audience. Case studies in India and the world. Bollywood's Bollywood, while people in Nigeria might love Bollywood, it's still not as mainstream in the West and in as Hollywood. And for example, we can say IPL. The IPL isn't just a cricket; it's a sports festival that bring together international player and fans, building connection. And
yoga scale. The UN International Yoga Day is a success because it's not seen as Indian propaganda, but as a universal gift for health and peace and health and peace. And the Chin India idea, this was the idea that India and Chin as ancient civilization could team up, but in reality they are more like a business partner who are not fierce competition. And the RRR phenomenon and global cinematic nationalism. The movie RRR is an extending action movie, but it also a story about Indian defeating their colonial master, which state national pride. China's Wolf Warrior. This is a Chinese version, which Chinese hero beats the Western villains, promoting a strong image of China. And USA Top Gun. This film is a thrilling jet movie, but it's also celebrating of American military excellence and heroism. What is the difference between three? That in India, India's nationalism is in film often feel more like a popular celebration, while China's feel more like a government message. The internal external divine. Soft power weaken when domestic issue contradict external image. And India's, for example, we can say the Manipur violence and challenge unity image. And USA, the US promotes itself as a leader of democracy, but the capital riot made that claim seems weaker of their countries. And Chin India versus the democratic world. The idea, this was the dream that the India and China as the ancient Asian civilization could become a team to counter Western influence. But what is the reality? They are too different. It's like two chiefs with a different recipe trying to run the same kitchen. India is a democracy, not that much, but we can say India where China is not. And the reality, so Indian states team up with other democratic like the US, Japan and Australia. It's like choosing friend who share your core values. The populist playback global tempest myth past cultural nationalism leader bidding, and the result is mobilizing yet polarism limiting global appeal. And the future aspect beyond the Bollywood promote Southern Korean like Tollywood or Mollywood, which have huge fan base and promotes inclusive multi-language narrative, research how AI and social media shape India's evolving or soft power landscape. Conclusion, India's rise is an example of identity negotiation, and success depend on credibility, inclusivity and plural storytelling. Here is my learning outcome, and here is a reference. Thank you.
So my question is, can you explain the key difference between software and cultural relations with a simple example?
The core difference between soft power and cultural relationship is that soft power is an one-way attraction, and cultural relation is a two-way partnership. For example, soft power is you watch a movie, for example, RR movie, and you see the glory of India, and that you say that India is the good. That is the soft power. One way, your own opinion. And if we can say cultural relation is a two-way partnership. For example, India and France are doing an exhibition, and in this way, the tutor which we get income. Both country will get fan base and also get income.
Rutvi, you call the diaspora powerful ambassadors, but aren't they also a source of criticism regarding domestic issues? How does that dual role affect soft power?
Yes, this dual role is a key feature. As the ambassador, they promote culture and build a bridge between two country or other country and a natural way attraction. And as a critic, they critic it represents that they are individual, not in under pressure of any other country. For example, we can say Dhruv Rathi or Ravish Kumar, they are showing India in a truth way, but he is not under control of Indian government. So this way we can say that as a ambassador and as a critic. So this is from my side. Thank you.
So today my presentation topic is negotiating in the identity in Indian culture through the Indian and British lens. These are the information, table of content, research question. How do Indian and British perspective differently represent the India culture, and what way does is the interaction between those perspective influence the construction of the India identity in literature, visual art and cinema? Hypothesis: British represent often the frame Indian culture through the exotized or colonial narratives, while the Indian perspective reclaim and the reinterpret culture identity. The negotiation between the lens produce an dynamic, constant understanding of the Indian identity across the literature, visual art, and cinema. Introduction: Understanding Indian culture and identity. Indian writer and Upanishada and Mahabharata, all this work are representing Indian identity, how India is the religious, philosophical, and following the rules of religious. And Indian culture embodied the immense diversity, linguistic, religious, ideological, and artistic, forming a mosaic rather than monoliths. And despite the colonial dispute and the globalization, Indian culture identity retain in the deep continuously rooted in Asian tradition, philosophy, and the social perspective practices. Indian identity is not fixed. Indian identity never fixed to the his work, but is the changing all times. In the study Indian culture through the both lenses allow to critical re-examination and the colonial story stereotype and they are recovering in the in indigenous culture agency. Explore the how Indian culture is interpret the idealized and the disparate through the Indian and the British viewpoints, and the how this interpret shape modes in indigenous formation. Indian identity is not static but the confusely negotiated between the British colonial representation and the Indian self representation across the literature, art, and cinema. Cultural representation and power. Representation is a culture, not a reflecting. According to Stuart Hall, culture don't simplify the reflect the reality construct in it a representation of the Indian British text and create the imagined ideas shaped by the ideology and power and political representation. How the representation would dominate the culture power, British deflection of the Indian, often the referring the imperial superiority, positioning in the West as the civilized, and the India as the exotic of primitive. Discourse and acknowledge and the Foucault colonial acknowledge system author the trivial writing and arts functions as the tool of control defining Indian throughout the Western import and the implied the dominances. Also, the Indian resistance signifying the Indian writer, ancient and filmmakers interpreted these improves the images, reflection and narrative, spake of the challenging the Eurocentric definition of the Indian cultures. Indian lens, self perspective, and the culture coloniality. In how the Indian writer and Indian people who do believe the how I identity through the literature, in the root in the civilization philosophy, Indian culture perspective itself through the conceptual like the drama, moral order, karma, action and conscious, and the smara, a cycle of life reflecting the deep philosophy, unity and across of diversity. Spiritual humanism. India is mostly believe in the spirituality. Let's overview cultural reliance. How do we believe in the culture despite the invasion, colonization, globalization? India's across the tradition in the art, literature, religion show the remarkable countly and the adaptability, blending the ancient within modern. The collective self. Indian culture define the identity and collective rather than individualistic term, emphasizing the community, family, and social duties. Indian modernity. In the modern writer also like Nehru, Tagore, and Radhakrishnan are the writing of the philosophical and the in religion aspect in this work. Nehru also writing Indian discovery, and the Tagore also in Gindanjali, and Radhakrishnan also is the giver Hindu philosophy and reflect the representation of the art in literature. India author and the filmmaker R.K. Narayan, Satyajit Roy, and Arundhati Roy. Arundhati Roy in the God of Small Thing, and R.K. Naik in the Malgudis, and the Satyajit Roy in the also in his film reflect of the Indian identities. British lens, how British see this India. Orientalism in the discourse, the Edward says, in his work, like Orientalism is the argue what is the Western construct and origin, exotic, irrational, and the Indian within the discover become the symbolical. Indian as the mystic East is the right Rudyard Kipling's epitaph Indian spiritual and chaotic example in the Kim. How describe the Indian bazaar, describing the Indian lifestyle and collect the picture of Indian bazaars. Civilization mission, Thomas Mesclati, minute on the education is the first work he also describing. In the colonial gaze in the modern film, even post empire cinema like Faces to India in the 1984 is the adaptation work from the original book to the make a film in 1984. David Lens echoes the Orientalist tension, portraying the India sexual echoes in the unlockable constant against the British rationality and the resistance. British identity literary against the Victorian text and imperialism narratives. Also, Rudyard Kipling, Flora Steele, E.M. Foster's, and Tennyson's poetry is given a critical insight in his work. Visual art, cinema, and British representation in India, like Thomas Daniel and William Daniel, is see this picture is the like a traveling in India in that time he was the pick up this picture, and traveling writer also to the collective the imagination of the Indian cultures. British cinema and colonial imagination. In the David Lens, in his The Passage to India, he describe the how Indian condition. Research Anton and his film Gandhi oriented topper visual representation and the cultural studies inside also related. Indian rebel to the reclaiming the culture voices, and the Indian writer how to reclaim this all this writing in his work describing the this Indian cultures like R.K. Narayan and cinema, literary critics, colonial theory, and dispatch and key insights. Diaspora and hybridity in representation in this work. Comparative and contemporary present perspective in the Indian itself, emphasizing the moral values, British Western contemporary Western perspective, hybridity, identity, and cultural insight and critical observation. Learning outcome, analyze the culture lens, examine the how culture is the main outcome is the how outsider country and writer show in India and how our the Indian writer observing our India. Conclusion. In conclusion of this all this work pictures how this British writer and the travelers are the show over India and cultures like in Rudyard Kipling Kim's this type of the work describe of the Indian condition, and after the Gitanjali is the writer also writing in the philosophical and culture and cultural things. These are the references, and thank you.
So Parthiv, how did British narratives shape Indian culture, and how did Indian respond?
Yes, Indian British is observing the India is the other side, and the religion very ethical and is follow the religion rules, and the is the no major identity of the India, but religion is the top in the like Rudyard Kipling's the Kim, a representation of the India, how the Indian bazaar and marketing is the show, and look after the Indian writer like Gitanjali by Rabindranath Tagore also representing, and Jawahar Lal Nehru also writing his the discovery of India, how the creating is the connections.
How did Indian and British perspective differ in representing Indian culture?
Yes, in a British writer is the look of the outsider, and sometime of the after post independence British writer also colonized people, and he look is like in work is the our is the authoritarian is the suppressor people, uh, and Indian people are the discovering his work is the our is the powerful, our is the religion, our is the major power of our works. India is the not given a clarity of the our major concern, but is the again and again describe his the religionity. Okay, this is from my side.
Good afternoon to all. Today's my presentation topic is American multiculturalism and the literary fight against racial constructs. Here is my table of content. My research question is how have African American and Latin writer used literature to challenge cultural construct of race, promote a multicultural identity in the United States. And my hypothesis is how have African American and Latin writer use literature to challenge cultural construct of race and promote a multicultural identity United States. Here is the introduction that American multiculturalism is the idea that the United States is made up of a diverse culture, ethnic and racial group, and that is the diversity should be respected and celebrated. As a national built by immigration and influenced by many cultures, the USA promote the coexistence of different tradition and identity. While this diversity is seen as a strength, challenge like racism and inequality still exists. Multiculturalism encourage inclusion, equal opportunity, and mutual respect among all communities. History and major period. So American multiculturalism is a crucial topic explored within the field of cultural study, and key historical event providing concept like Watts Race Riot in 1965, the passage of the Civil Rights Act 1964, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And the shifting demographic and the concept of race is by the year 2015, the United States is a commonly predicted to be a majority minority population. So America has a vast culture of multiculturalism, that many people come to Africa, and that's how they their population increase as a multicultural. Race as a culture construct. So social scientists increasingly view race as a construct invaded by whites to assign social status and privilege. In 1972, Harvard University study found that most genetic difference exists within racial group, not between them. And Henry Louis Gates described race as a dangerous trope. And despite its arbitrary nature, race remains a critical feature of American life, acting as both greatest source of social conflict and richest source of cultural development. So first I will discuss the African American writer and culture. So prominent writer of 20th century to modern novelist Toni Morrison and Ralph Ellison argue black culture is central to understanding American culture as a whole. When we see literary characteristic of American multiculturalism, then folkloric view of humankind, double consciousness, a concept given by W.B. Du Bois, use of irony, parody, tragedy, and bitter comedy, inventing language and elevation of black folk tradition. And historical milestone are Harlem Renaissance and Toni Morrison's great contribution. So first major writer is Ralph Ellison. His two work Invisible Man and Shadow and Act. And Ralph Ellison explored the theme of African American struggle for identity and reconciliation through the lens of a double conscious concept mentioned early. He shows how black individuals navigate being both black and America. Then Harriet E. Wilson, her famous novel Our Nig, and she focused on racial hypocrisy in the Free North. Then Linda Brennett, her famous novel Incident in the Life of a Slave Girl, and focus on the sexual exploitation, motherhood, and moral dignity amid the brutality and hypocrisy of slavery. Then Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, her famous novel is Lola Lori. She highlights the racial afflict, women's empowerment, and moral reform. Then Charles Weddell Chestnut, his famous work, The Mero Tradition, and he also focused on colorism and social passing, exposing the hypocrisy of racism and post-slavery America, majorly highlight in his work. Then Richard Wright, famous writer, his work Black Boy and Natives contribute much in the American literature, and he focused on racism, oppression, and search for identity. And his work depict violence, alienation, and resistance also. Then the contemporary writer is Toni Morrison. her famous novel Beloved, The Bluest Eyes, and Song of Solomon. And she insight into the painful life of her black protagonists as they confront racism in all its form in American society. When other writer are exploring the trauma or racism or crucial thing about time period, but Toni Morrison find a piece in her character from this all conflict. Then Latino writer. So the term Latino, Latina or Latino to indicate a broader sense of ethnicity among Spanish-speaking people in the United States. So major writer are Sandra Cinzers, her famous work The House of Mango Tree, and she explore identity, gender, and cultural heritage, and Latin women navigating between Mexican and American world, that how Mexican world and American world collapse, and how women survive. Then the Robert Rodriguez, he made two films, El Miraki and Spy Kids. El Miraki is the old one, released in 1992, and Spy Kids is released in 2001. And he also focused on Mexican American culture with the theme of justice, individual, and resistance. Then Rudolfo Anaya, his famous work Bless Me Ultima. He explore identity, spirituality, and blending of Mexican and indigenous tradition, emphasizing the search for harmony, like Toni Morrison. And in this work, Bless Me Ultima, he focused on impact of World War II in Mexico. Then Oscar Zeta Acosta, his masterpiece, The Revolt of the Cockroach People, published in 1973, and explore Chicano identity, one movement that prominent in this time period, social justice and rebellion, highlighting the struggle against racism. Then Richard Rodriguez, his famous work Hunger of Memory, and focus on personal ambition and family loyalty. Maria Amparo Ruiz de Burton, she explored the struggle of Mexican American culture, legal injustice, and racial prejudice. Last one is the Josefina Nigel. Her work is a Mexican village and focus on bicultural identity. Then multiculturalism, a rhetorical strategy. So not every time multiculturalism celebrated by America, but at some level it has a diversity. So the use of diversity is a rhetorical strategy that sound neutral, but it fundamentally political. And culture is defined by the anti-discrimination struggle itself. Their literature is the means by which they demand a reconstruction of the American national identity, or unum means unity. And when we see this conflict in practical, so the case study from Amiri Baraka's poem Somebody Blew Up America, it based on the domestic struggle in America, but his poem's name is Somebody Blew Up. So the homeland metaphor, Rosa uses the metaphor of homeland to show how the boundary of American identity become racialized, because this poem criticized by people. In conclusion, the African America and Latin author redefine race as a culture, then biological construct. So in this we find the two as a rhetoric of American literature and American literature worldwide. So here my resources, and now you are free to ask question.
My question is, in what way does the American multiculturalism challenging the American claim of the being melting pot in the culture?
So when we think about American multiculturalism global, then we consider as a melting pot. But as I discuss rhetoric of American multiculturalism, then there is a appropriate salad bowl, then a melting pot.
In what ways does Changesh's experience in Elected Fundamentalist reveal the limits of American multi-structuralism after 9/11?
Okay, so when we come to the novel or movie Reluctant Fundamentalist, at that time, as I mentioned, the context of 1911 attack. So at that time, Changes is the victim of that incident, and before that, he appreciate for his economical or political contribution. But after that, every people try to suspect them, and he feel alienation. So that's how Genghis Khan revealed the limits of American multiculturalism after 1911 attack. Thank you, everyone.
The journey of multicultural American literature. Here is academic information, table of content, and my research question is that how did American Indian and Asian American writers transform from marginalized voice to central figure in American literature, and what cultural, historical, and political forces catalyzed this transformation, especially during the literary renaissance of 1916 to 1980s? And my hypothesis is that the rises of American Indian and Asian American literature was not sudden phenomenon, but the result of a long continuum of cultural resistance, oral tradition, preservation, and hybrid narratives experimentation. The socio-political movements of 1916s and 17s include civil rights, decolonization, and ethnic studies initiative provide the space for this silenced voice to emerge, reclaim identity, and redefine the American literary canon. Introduction, which also discussed by Krishna, so I skip it. And this one, early foundations. So American Indian pioneers. Samson Akam focused on Christian teaching, emphasizing sin, redemption, and moral guidance. Used plain, accessible language to reach a native and non-native audience effectively. His major works is the sermon preached at the execution of Mophi's Paul. Then Zitka Lasa, her style is a lyrical, autobiographical, and politically charged, comparing the struggle between indigenous culture and assimilation. And her major works are this American Indian story and Old Indian legends. Then Asian American pioneers, Edith Eaton, she is focused on Chinese immigrant experience, highlighting discrimination and cultural identity. Used realistic storytelling to depict everyday life and struggle of Chinese American communities. Her prominent work is with Mrs. Spring's Fragrance, and another one is Winifred Eaton. Her style is romanticized and descriptive, often using cultural imagery and melodrama to appeal to early 20th century audience. Adapted the Japanese pen name Otono Watana, and her major work is this Kettle. Building momentum, period of 19 to 1960, notable voices, the Lean sister, Edith Anner, and May Millin. The Lean sister wrote raw and vivid wartime accounts from a child's perspective, down over chunking first-hand experience of war written by 17 years old and 14 years old and 10 years old, unflinching portrayal of horrifying slides of rotting corpses, burning houses, and abandoned children. Its major work is Down Over Chunkings. Then Zede Snong Rong, fifth Chinese daughter, when called Chinky by a white child. Jade Snow thought that he was tiresome and ignorant. Everybody knew that the Chinese people had a superior culture. Her ancestor had created a great art heritage and made invention important to world civilization. Her major works is a fifth Chinese daughter. The Catalyst, 1960s Renaissance. Socio-political context, civil rights movement, American Indian movement, and anti-war activism and ethnic study programs. These are the major events during this 1960 Renaissance. And this Anne Scott Momaty is one of the catalysts of this period. He focused on native identity, heritage, and connection to land, used lyrical, descriptive language, blending modern narrative with native oral tradition. House Made of Dawn won Pulitzer Prize in 1969. His prominent work are the names Amemoir and the Earth Keeper and this House Made of Dawn, which won a Pulitzer Prize. Then Renaissance flourishes, the period of 1917s and 1918s. Maxine Hong Kingston focused on Chinese American identity, gender, and family history, explored silence, memory, and intergenerational conflict in immigration families, used a hybrid style combining memoir, myth, and folklore to tell complex story, blended personal narrative with a cultural myth to challenge stereotypes and reclaim heritage. Her prominent works are this Chinaman, the Woman Warrior Memoirs, Girlhood Among Ghosts, and the Fifth Book of Peace. Then contemporary success, period of 1980 to present time. Louis Edridge focused on Ojibwe community's life, family, and cultural survival. Used interwoven narratives and multiple perspectives to capture complex tribal experience. Explored history, trauma, and identity through fiction ground in native tradition. Her major works are Bad Queen and Louis, this one Tracks and this Love Medicine. Then Joy Harjo, she focused on Moses's identity, survival, and connection to land. Used poetic cadences, metaphor, and myth to convey native spiritual and cultural traditions. Explored trauma, resilience, and historical memory through lyrical poetry. Blended oral storytelling rhythm with contemporary poetic form for a powerful narrative voices. Her major works are this Remember, then Conflict Resolution for a Holy Being, and this one Poet Warrior. Then Amy Tan focused on Chinese American family dynamics, mother daughter relationship, and cultural identity, used interwoven narratives and alternating perspective to depict generational conflict. Her prominent work are this The Joy Luck Club and this Amy Tan, The Valley of Amazement. Key literary strategies. So this oral tradition preservation challenges. Traditional Indian literature is not especially accessible for average reader, and it is not easy to translate from Cherokee into English. Contextual frames do not translate well, nor does the oral performative scaled function and traditional literature, because this literature is on told orally, so people are not understand that literature and not framing it in their novels or at that time. So solutions that Mohammed is he uses this layered narrative in his works. Then this Edrich multiple narrators used in his works, and Hosaro's poetic cadences. Then genre hybridity. Kingston, a blend of memoir, myth, fiction, Pepperson stories, and confessions as literary precursors. Then competing narrator. From her competing narrator emerges unfilled story of community under siege by outside world. Cultural pride through character. Wong's protagonist reveals racism absurdity. Jade Snow thought that he was tiresome and ignorant. Everybody knew that the Chinese people had superior cultures. Challenges and ongoing debates. Authenticity debates. The Kingston controversy. Frank Chin criticized the Marxist Hong Kingston's work, The Woman Warrior, greatly. In response, Maxine Hong Kingston works has inspired a whole generation of Asian American writers and other writers. Then these translation issues, naming politics, and gender dynamics. These are the contemporary issues. Then why it is matter? So it's expanding the canons. It is expanding canons and cultural survival and revitalization. For American Indian, stories are source of strength in a face of centuries of silencing by Euro-Americans. They also challenging dominant narrative and contemporary and its contemporary relevance. Our country would grow and develop by including the truth in our national story. Then, in conclusion, from silence to Renaissance, multicultural American literature reflects survival and self-expression. Later voices such as Wong, Momedi, and Edridge Hazro and Kingston transformed oral tradition into literary art. These are my references, and thank you. Now, if you have any questions, then feel free to ask.
My question is, are these literature still relevant for the younger generation?
Yes, this literature is still relevant for younger generation because it helps them to understand understand their culture and connect them with their culture, identity, and history. And it also helps them to understand what is the real struggle and what is the achievement of Native American and Indian American Indian American writers.
My question is, why did the 1960s and 70s become a turning point for a Native and Asian American literature?
Yes, this 1960 and 70 become turning point for narrative Asian American literature because at the time very political and social movements like a civil rights movement and this American Indian movement and this ethnic study programs are helping these writers to raise their voice against all this, and they are writers like Kingston and this yes, they are raised their voice and also published their work during that time.
So, hello everyone, I am Divya Paledra, and today's last paper and my presentation topic is climate fiction through cultural studies, how contemporary environmental narratives reflect and shape cultural anxiety. So, let's begin. Here is my academic information. This is table of content which we will discuss in detail. And here my research question is, how does climate fiction function as a cultural text that both mirrors contemporary eco-anxiety and actively shapes collective environmental consciousness through narrative strategy? And my hypothesis is climate fiction acts as a bidirectional cultural forces that reflects collective anxieties about environmental collapses and systematic failures, shapes the reader's understanding of climate change through emotional and imaginative engagement, and construct new forms of environmental citizenship by fostering empathy and a sense of a shared responsibility. Here, introduction, defining fiction. So what is climate fiction? Climate fiction is a literature that deals with climate change and global warming, generally speculative in nature, but informed by climate science. Works of climate fiction may take place in the world as we know it in the near future, or in fictional worlds experiencing climate change. Key characteristic like a genre hybridity rooted in science fiction, but also draws on realism and the supernatural. And then temporal range, near future to distant post apocalyptic settings. Then scientific grounding based on actual climate science projection, and last one is cultural purposes makes abstract climate data emotionally accessible and historical context. Like this term is a coin in 2008 by journalist Dan Bloom. Genre gained prominence in 2018th century amid inflation climate crisis, now recognized with dedicated prize and academic programs. Here, learning to live with the ghost climate crisis and the challenge of education. The climate crisis demands more than a technical solution. It requires a deep cultural and educational transformation. Living with ghosts symbolizing the ongoing presence of past environmental lessons, past environmental losses, and looming future threats. Education must go beyond factual knowledge to include emotional, ethical, and imaginative engagement with climate issues. Schools and universities should foster resilience, relational understanding, and a sense of responsibility in learners. And last one, addressing ecological grief and uncertainty is essential for meaningful and climate education in the Anthropocene era. And here theocratical framework, new historicism applied to climate fiction. Core principle is text and context are mutually constitutive. Literature both reflect and produce historical moment. Application to cli-fi like circulating energies. Climate fiction doesn't just refers 2020 is the eco anxiety. It actively produces and circulate it through reading communities. Anecdote as method, small narrative moments. Example: water scarcity, sense heat waves reveal larger cultural episteme about resource politics. Then power and subversion, examine how cli-fi both challenges dominant ideologies and sometimes reinscribe them. And historical document, today's cli-fi become tomorrow's historical evidence of how we understood climate crisis. Then here theoretical lens to cultural materialism. Cultural materialism applied to cli-fi. Core principle is literature emerges from material condition and economic relation. Examine basis, superstructure relationship. Application to cli-fi is material condition. Climate crisis rooted in capitalism, resource extraction, unequal exchanges. How does cli-fi represent these? Then production and distribution. Who write cli-fi? Who publishes? Who reads? And this reveals. This all reveals the environmental privilege, ideology, and hegemony. Does the cli-fi naturalize capitalist solution like a carbon market, a green technology, or imagine radical alternatives? Then here, eco anxiety as the cultural phenomenon. Understanding eco anxiety, like the chronic fear of environmental doom and the distress caused by climate change, where people are becoming anxious about their future. Key features like future orientation and uncertainty, fear and perceived the threat to existence, collective trauma experience. Then this priority of affects young people and marginalized communities. Then statistical reality, like a climate anxiety had a significant inverse association with mental well-being in 31st out of 32 centuries studies, country studies. Cultural studies insight, eco anxiety is not individual pathology but collective cultural response to systematic crisis. Cli-fi process this collective trauma narratively. Here, cli-fi as a cultural response, how literature process collective climate trauma. First one is affective reads, scientific discourse provides data, cli-fi provides emotions and feeling. Then translate abstract statistic into embodied human experience. Climate fictions are an important way of communicating climate science to non-specialist audience. Then narrative frameworks gives shape and meaning to overwhelming phenomena. provide temporal structure, beginning like a beginning, middle, and end to ongoing crisis, creates a possibility for agency and action. Then dystopia as warning, mostly set in the future and focused on dystopian societies dealing with the consequences of climate change, and cautionary tales means to prevent predicted futures. Here I take an example of Octavia Butler's parable of the sower. Persistent vision of climate future. This groundbreaking 1903rd novel begin in 2024, based by climate disasters, intense violence, and brutal economic inequality. Cultural studies analysis like intersectionality, black female protagonist Lure Olamina experiences climate through lens of racial capitalism, multiple operations, compound environmental vulnerability, and hypermethy as the metaphor, luring ability to feel others' pain and climate sensitivity, then communicating building. Then here communicating build alternative kinship structures in crisis. Then then second example is Amitabh Ghosh works and Indian climate, the Great Derangement 2060, and Gun Island 2019 post-colonial climate discourse like colonial legacy, then mythology and science, cultural displacement, and then here third example of contemporary trends of the climate fiction prize is 2024 to 26. The climate fiction prizes celebrate the most inspiring novels tackling the climate crisis through great stories. It will support a society to fully grasp the climate change threat and to embrace its solution. Prize launches in 2025 with £10,000 award, singles genre institutionalization and cultural legitimacy. And here 2025's winner was Abby Dare for her work, and so I wrote selected from a short list of 5 novels. And then here, power dynamic in Cli-Fi, a critical question: who speaks and who is silent? So dominant voices and marginalized voices. And here, cultural studies analysis, the reproduction of inequality. Those most affected by climate change often lack access to literary culture, and analyzing their plight. And publishing industry gatekeeping determines whose futures are imaginable and why this matters. So contemporary relevance like for environmental discourse, for literary studies, and for future imaginations. It's not enough for audience to know about climate change. They need to see themselves in the story. Narrative provides the imaginative space for alternative futures. Then for social justice, and for students like as future educators, writers, activists, and also citizens, understanding how culture processes crisis equips you to intervene more thoughtfully in ongoing climate observation. And here conclusion: climate fiction reflect public eco anxiety by turning science into emotional stories, making the crisis real. It is a crucial cultural tool for processing collective trauma and imagining new futures. Critically, it also reflects and challenges the existing power dynamics of whose voice are heard. And this is my learning outcome. And these are my references. And thank you. Do you have any questions? Then feel free to ask.
So Divya, my question is that does the climate fiction just make a people feel anxious, or does it genuinely lead them to take necessary action and fight for justice?
Often it causes eco anxiety. Eco anxiety is not as like is not as like or environmental, and also it about the radical requires adaptation or adaptation, and more about beyond the necessary of the future and all.
Divya, my question is, does using European theory like new historicism fully capture indigenous climate knowledge?
So no, this Western framework, this Western framework might miss the traditional ecological knowledge and ecological knowledge, and also about the growth and all about the culture of the South and crisis in the era. So this was from my side. Thank you.
So hello everyone. Today's my topic is seeing the divine in nature, cross-culture perspective on nature and worship. First, this is the table of content which we will going to explore now. My research question is, how do cultural and psychological factors shape the experience of divine presence in the nature, and how do these spiritual beliefs influence environmental conversation amid modern ecological challenges? My hypothesis is cultural and spiritual beliefs that view nature as the divine strengthen the people's connection to the environment and lead to positive conversational outcome. So first, in introduction, many cultures have a belief pattern that promoting nature is a good one, but people generally do not say that save environment or whatever kind. So whenever there are the smart ones, older people who just linked that link with religion, so that everyone can save environment or that kind of thing, like. That is all in this introduction. Then the concept or theoretical lenses. First is animism, which means the belief of non-human entities such as animals, plants, and the natural landscape possess the spiritual agency of personhood, reflecting a relation worldview of where human coexist with sentient nature. Then Proust's mind, a culture psychological model suggesting that in certain tradition, the human mind is viewed as open or permeable to spiritual presence. Individuals with higher absorption tends to experience vivid encounters with goods or spirit. Then relational values framework out and understanding how people's value nature uh, for its own sake and for its utility, and through the emotion and moral connection. Then spiritual ecology, uh, interdisciplinary fields that unit spiritual or religious worldview with ecological ethics, emphasizing the sacredness and moral significance of the earth. And dark green religion, a form of nature spiritually grounded in a deep ecological biocentrism, views earth and all living system as sacred and interconnected, perspective often informed by evolution science and cosmic humanity. Then sensing the presence of God in it's a study which is done in the USA, Ghana, and Thailand, China, and Hunet. There are the two cognitive or cultural factors which matters. First is prosody, belief in a permeable boundary between mind and the world, and the second is absorption, immersive attention, tendency to become deeply absorbed in inner life or surrounding. So here we can question that why a fairy is often seen in a forest, not in any crowd or office or world. Then the role of religion in shaping the values of nature. So they examine here in this article, examines the form of agency through which religion interacts with nature's value. First is personal, in which individuals believe practices moral commitments. A second is social institution norms and communities, and a third is more than human, how religion framework include non-human agents or sacredness. So in here we can get some Indian example, like first is Vat Savitri Vrat, then people means banyan tree, which is also related with ghost. So first people think that banyan tree is good, but not everyone will support that. Okay, just increase its number. So people relate it with ghost, in case that if they don't want to they don't believe in religion, then they might be scared of it. Then nature is a character and a moral compass in India and in modernist poetry, which is wasteland. So first, in epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, forests and rivers are shown as sacred or purity full of. Then second is Meghdutam, where the cloud is represented as a divine messenger. And in modernist poetry, it does not directly reveals the theme, but it depicts the emptiness of water and the natural or the less of natural cycles. And in last, it da 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 represent also the renewal or relevance for natural cycles. Then a cross-culture case study, a global eco-theology. Eco-theology serves as a visual conceptual framework demonstrating how religion techniques, teachings, and teachings can be directly linked with environmental stewardship to inspire interfaith century in addressing the environmental crisis. First is in Islam, there is a khilaf in the Quran emphasizes the human roles in maintaining ecosystem balance and prohibits resources. Then in Hinduism, we have three hitakarna, where three harmonies is shown: harmony between man and a man, harmony between man and a human, and harmony between human and environment. Then Buddhism and Christianity, interdependence and ecological responsibility. Both tradition stresses compassion for all the living beings, the interconnectedness of life, and the moral obligation to confront ecological sin and promote environmental care. Then measurable impact, African traditional religion context. African religion, traditional religion, ATR, often placed specific natural sites within a sacred place. Findings, a study on ATR adherence in Benin found a casual and positive impact on forest cover change over at the time. A mechanism adhered to ATR is found to be a functional mechanism for conservation, demonstrating that that an increase in spiritual belief reduced the marginal utility derived from destruction of forest resource. And empirical result, one standard of deviation increase in ATR adherence has 0.4 standard deviation positive impact on forest cover change. Then here is a case study of the Bishois community and the Kejarili massacre. So here, when Maharaja of Jodhpur ordered felling of Kejari trees for a place woman named Amrita Devi, and 363 other Bishois embarrassed the tree, which movement known as the Chipko also. And outcome, this radical religiously driven self-sacrifice resulted into the state declaring the Bishois lands a protected zone where the killing of animals and felling of trees remains prohibited to this day. Profound non-legal enforcement of a conversation rooted in faith. Then in a tension, contradiction, and external procedure. So the paradox, here in the paradox, conversely, religious institution can resist change of their practices and conflict in paradox. So we can question against the nature-based spirituality. Then why not without spirituality we can save the global economy or condition? Then nuancing the paradox. While these challenges are real, the ATR case study demonstrated that where stronger spiritual ecological coherence exists, spiritual belief can provide a robust, measurable protection for environment. Then in conclusion, across the cultures, native worshippers seeing the divine in the nature is whispered, but the experience is meditated by culture, cognitive and institutional factors. Religion is a powerful lens through which societies invites nature with meaning, values, and moral obligation. However, nature spirituality alone is no guarantee of ecological sustainability. tension and external pressure often intervenes. Then implications for environmental work. For effective environmental policy, engaging religious worldviews requires a comprehensive approach that consider religion's influence across the social scale and its dynamic continuum to foster sustainability against the values. Engaging religious worldviews respectively and critically can enrich conversation and sustainability effort. Here is references. So now I would like to have questions.
So Bhargav, what does dark green religion mean?
Dark green religion is a belief system that sees nature as a sacred, gives instructive value, and considers a human morally responsible to protect and honor the earth.
So Bhargav, my question is, why would people see or believe in divinity of nature in present time?
From my point of view, I don't think that people needs to believe in any kind of divinity to protect the nature or environment in present time. Thank you.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. On the very last day of presentation, I'm also last presenter of the morning session. Here with the clothing as a cultural identity, how fashion become a language. Here is the academic information, table of content, and research question is, how do garments like the sari and hijab function as a cultural languages that communicate identity, social belonging, and cultural values? Hypothesis is garments such as the sari and hijab serve as a multi-layered cultural text, encoding identity, social norms, and cultural meaning, and their interpretation in context dependent. The combination of semiotic, performative, and material approaches will reveal that these clothes are simultaneously sites of personal agency, social expectation, and cultural heritage. So, fashion as a language. So, Rolla Barthes, in his 1967 book, The Fashion System, argued that fashion works just like a language. He used semiotics, the study of science, to show that clothing is not only functional but symbolic. When we look at a piece of clothing, for example, a white shirt, it has a denotation. It's a literal aspect, a cotton shirt worn on the body, but it also carries connotations, perhaps purity, professionalism, or class status, depending on a context. So, in the same way that words build sentences, fashion elements combine to produce social meaning. The way we dress, therefore, communicates identity, gender, belonging, and rebellion. So, Barthes explain that fashion media, advertisement, and cultural codes write the meaning of clothes. So, when a magazine calls a dress romantic or elegant, it's not describing fabric; it's a constructing ideology. This theory helps us see clothing as a social text we can interpret, and revealing how culture shapes that we wear and what we think those garments means. Here's the theoretical toolkit. So Rolla Barthes gives us semiotics, the study of science. He says fashion operates like a language, and garments are signifiers that carry social meanings. For example, a white dress might signify purity and or a modernity, depending on a culture. So, as per the point of view, John and twist extends this idea into social experience. She calls dress a situated bodily practice, meaning that what we wear reflects our class, gender, and profession and identity. Clothing shapes how we experience our own bodies and how other perceives us. So, another side is Judith Butler adds a performative dimension. She argues that gender is not something we are, but something we do. Clothing is one of the daily acts through which gender identity is expressed and reinforced. For instance, a man in a suit or a woman in a sari performs gender roles that society recognizes. And finally, Stothol helps place this all within a culture identity. He reminds us that identity is not fixed. It's both being and becoming. The meaning of clothing change with context. What the sari means in India might differ from what it remains in London. So here is the how to study clothing as a language. So as per the Rollabath's visual semiotic analysis, read garments, adverts and media image as a text that communicate meaning through signs like a color, style and pose. So we can see the color. That we know that this Bhagwa color represented the Hinduism and the green color represented the Muslims. So yes, the color also as much important. And then ethnography interviews. So as per this Mahmood, listen to wearers' personal meaning, emotions and memories attached to clothes. And third is material object analysis. So study actual clothing pieces, fabric, stitching and display to understand cultural context. Then the sari as a cultural language. A sari can express regional belonging, for instance, like a Kanjivaram from the Tamil Nadu, the Banarasi from Uttar Pradesh, or the Bandhani from the Gujarat. Each drape motif and waves tells where a person comes from. It's also a gendered practice, traditionally tied to femininity and modesty, yet today reinterpreted by modern designers and young women who wear it differently, sometimes with sneakers or crop tops, merging a heritage with modern style. And the British Museum's textile collection documents this diversity. It includes saris made of silk, cotton and synthetic blends from different Indian states, showing how each fabric and pattern carries a regional memory. So note that the sari has also become a site of reinvention and cultural negotiation. Young urban women and diaspora community use it to express both Indianness and global identity. So sari is a semiotic reading. So as per the denotation, a silk Banarasi sari with a gold zari border and intricate floral motifs draped over the shoulder, pallu and plaits, arrange everything and accompanied by bangles and bindi and everything. Then connotation, so signals regional identity, North Indian craftsmanship and connotes ritual celebrations such as class and status. Expensive hand-woven silk marks prestige. And myth, ideology that represent Indian femininity and respectability. Idealized image of womanhood embodies national heritage. Sari is a timeless symbol of Indianness and reinforces gender norms, associating grace, modesty and tradition with female virtue. So the hijab, faith, fashion and identity. So the hijab refers to the head covering worn by many Muslim women as a part of modest dress, but its interpretation varies widely. It can signify religious devotion, cultural identity, or even modern empowerment. In some contexts, women adopt it as a form of personal faith and ethical commitment. In other, it becomes a statement of political identity or resistance, especially in a societies where Muslim identity is marginalized. This Pew Research Center's 2020 global survey shows that most Muslim women say wearing the hijab is a matter of personal choice, not a coercion. So, however, opinions differ across the countries in Indonesia and Malaysia. So it's widely seen as a part of cultural respectability, while in Europe or North America, it often becomes a marker of difference and visibility. So the hijab is also increasingly linked to fashion and digital culture. Social media influencers and modest fashion industries reinterpret it with color, style, and creativity and modern aesthetics. So hijab is a semiotics and performative reading. So denotation like a handcraft covering hair, tied under chain, and draped fabric types, cotton color, and connotation is a modesty, religious belonging, culture belonging, professionalism, fashion choice, political visibility, meaning shift by region and social context. And how to apply baths in this point of view that identify the signifier, material, color, style, and propose possible signifieds, not how captions at supply the myth that fix meanings. And here is the performative and embodied meaning. Performatively, this Judith Butler dress is a part of repetitive acts that produce gender identity. Wearing a hijab can be a performative act, and Muslim identity it reflects. And here is the Mahmood point of view. Wearing a hijab is not only outward display, but an embodied practice shaping a gesture and self formation. Here is the comparative points like a sari versus hijab. So we can these are the similarities that both garments encode cultural, social, communication, personal meaning, and gender, phase, regional background. And here is the differences between these both sari and hijab. So sari often interpreted the regional class and ritual markers, and hijab is a devotion, modesty belonging to Muslim community. And here is the theoretical insights: the identity in a contextual and dynamic meaning of sari and hijab shift with space, audience, and social context. So as per the whole, both garments illustrate the whole idea that identity is both being and becoming in contemporary life. So here I conclude my presentation. So clothes are more than fabric; they speak. They function as a languages, communicating cultural and social meanings as a performances, shaping and expressing identity through repeated acts, and as a history carrying material, regional, and personal stories. Studying garments through a combination of a semiotic analysis and ethnography and object-based methods provides a richer understanding of how they operate in a society. This mixed approach, guided by scholars like John Edsfield and Entwistle and this Rose, help us see clothing not just as a decoration, but as a dynamic lens onto culture, identity, and everyday life. Here is the learning outcome. These are the references. And thank you so much. If you have any question, then feel free to ask.
So Bhumi, my question is, how does digital fashion change the cultural expression?
Digital fashion, we can say that like a digital platform, so Instagram and YouTuber can allow people to show their what they wear in a creative and modern way. So nowadays people also mix the old and new mixture of the combination in the dress code, and those who are a influencer or designer, so they wear a sari with sneakers and styling a hijab in a trendy colors and everything. So it's represent also self-expression and confidence. So yes.
So Bhumi, my question is, what larger cultural lesson does your research suggest?
Research teaches that clothes is not about that it's a carry a deep cultural ideas like who we are and where we come from and what we believe in, because the many of dresses show that faith and this society also work in how gender, class, and resistance worked in the society. So yes, this research suggests that fashion is not only about looking how we looking good and everything, but it's about the form of we can say form of communication to express the self-reflection and expression and culture and values also. So yes, thank you so much.
Okay, so that was the last presentation. So in the last one about fashion or clothes, when we select the samples, then there should be some kind of similarity in selecting the samples. Normally, the clothes like hijab or sari, they are anytime questioned by the people. It is on the grounds. On what grounds people question that? Normally, it is that you try to cover up the identity. So the individual is not visible. And that way, the space of performance, everything is not at all noticed. Like, who is that person? There is nobody there within that. So people try to question that. So when we bring the samples of examples, then even from this sari, what is the counterpart of that? That becomes important to be seen. And also that these clothes, some consider it as religious, some cultural, social. More oftenly, they are more cultural practices. Hijab and they fall under religious practices. So that also is a huge difference between how people consider the clothes or other things also. It is on this ground that many times people consider sari as a very traditional or regressive clothing. And so to counter that, people give examples of scientists wearing saris. Scientists in NASA are wearing, now scientist doesn't mean always male only. We have done that bias activity. So we know that the AI will always bring scientists as male, but when somebody speaks scientist before us, it should not be the male figure. If it is, still there is a bias inside that we can identify that. So that is why they bring that figure, that see the scientist in ISRO or the Indian scientist in NASA or any other such organizations where they wear sari. So sari wearing is not only rural, it is highly educated people also wear. So why this counter is coming? Why people bring such image over another image? That is very important to be seen in those examples. In another reference, we'll see if I can get the name of the student who presented that. It was about Indian lens and British lens. I think Parthiv presented that on this negotiating identities there. One of the good examples, we have discussed one during our discussion about clothes. That is about fabric, making clothes on that textile industry. We have seen that what kind of textile industries were there in India and how they were being destroyed. 18 volumes of books are written by the Englishmen, and then that was used to bring in handlooms, machines from Britain, and fine clothes, which were muslin clothes, Dhaka, West Bengal, Patan, Patola, that all is almost dying or non-existent kind of a thing. That is the, so that is one thing that was investigated in a rightful manner. Another was this monitorial system, popularly known as Bell and Langston system. Andrew Bell and Joseph Lancaster, they are known as the pioneer of this system of education. Now people have started reading that Andrew Bell was working in India, and he has seen here somewhere near Madras in a school where this system was operating, and he got an idea from that. So what is this system, which is popularly known as Bell-Lancaster system or monitorial system? It means that in a class, there are very limited teachers. In India, whatever schools were running, they were having very limited. So only one teacher was running entire school. So then he will make monitors. And those monitors will be teaching different standards. So a senior student is teaching junior student. That system he has seen in India. And then he took that idea. These are all graphical presentation of that system in different form. Here you can see that how a different group in the same class, different groups are teaching different students. So these are all graphical presentation of how monitorial system can be implemented in different ways. Circular mode, straight line, people sitting there, or this kind of small groups are made, and one student is dealing with 5-7 students in a separate group. So these are all examples of that there. So now people say that this also has its origin in India. So but people write that this was happening in Russia also. In some rural schools in Russia also, people were having this kind of system. So it might be widespread, and as people come to know more about that, they try to connect that what way we try to look at this. But for us, it is important because without knowing this name or other thing, we implement that in our department also. The seniors are teaching so many things to juniors. You learn so many things from your senior, and you are now teaching to the juniors also. All the thing that is normally skill-based thing, where digital skilling is required or how to do is required. That doing part is taught by students to students, peer learning, and that way it works in a better way also than teacher teaching theoretical things, and the students teaching practical things also. So in future, if you have to talk of this, that a real life example can also be taken, that how different groups of students, they take a lead and then they teach to the junior students. That has become a kind of a system which is running for so many years now. So that was monitorial system. This who talked about esports? Khushi Ravia on esports also. So there was this question also, that how do you see, I think somebody asked you the question on esports as a literary expression or that. So now esports, there is an interesting entry on Wikipedia also about esports. How one looks at that, what are the types of esports? There is this list of esports and other things also. And now people are negotiating whether it can be a part of Olympics or not. But a separate games are being played here also. But esports and video game, what is the difference between both the things? Video games are near to literary expressions. So when we talk about gamification or electronic literature, we try to see video games, where a kind of a story is unfolding. A prince is in search of princess, and then he goes from different terrain, and then he ultimately saves a princess. So that is one template of narration. So you have some goal, and with that goal you are playing a game to achieve a particular goal where the story is unfolding. That is near literature or other narratives. But esports is for playing only. It is something that you play. There is competition and people are playing a game. So this difference is very important to keep in mind when we ask a question also, or when we try to see. The comparison should be with real sports and esports. What way people would compare. So most of the pictures when we see of esports, we find people sitting and playing. They get so much involved that they start shouting or emotionally they get connected a lot also with these are old versions of different esports, and people how they get now a big event is being there about esports in different ways. So people see that how the audience can also take an entry into it. How will the people see? What will be the stadium in esports? So some people will have an entry like they are just watching, and they will see what other people are doing, because that is very difficult to find a space for audience in esports where there is only a screen and people are doing the thing. So this is one such stadium where people see on the screen and they try to have this. So now here what we see is that all these things are happening over mouse and keyboard only. The real sports is something where you perspire a lot, you get tired, the breathing the fast, and that all also happen. Now here that doesn't happen. So that's why the real sports people will never accept esports as something that is really that requires physical skills, mental skills. Mental skill, one can say it is there in video games also, but physical skills. So what has to come here is 3D immersive experience, so where you have objects in the hand and you are actually playing the game, and that is reflected on the screen. So if you are playing a cricket or a tennis, then you are actually playing physically in a room, and on the screen it is reflected. So you are wired with infrared wires or invisible connections, and then all your gestures of body movement are converted into E form. So you actually get tired also. You actually require stamina also. It is not only sitting and playing, but you become an active performer also in that. So this is how the very idea of esports is growing or developing in different ways also. There was one on soft power. Rutvi presented on this soft power and other things. I think we shared this link with you for reading purpose in post-colonial studies, and heroes or hegemons, and how the American Hollywood film industry is being seen as a soft power, and films like James Bond or Rambo were playing a significant role. And there was this video also which was talking about this one Gravitas Plus video, how India can harness the soft power of Bollywood. That was also being discussed in that. So in this context, if we see this idea of soft power, then what comes or where we stand with all these debates is a point that if somebody is using the soft power as a hegemonic process to display the political power, like American example is given normally in different ways. So when we make a critique that this is not fair thing to apply hegemonic ideas either in harder manner or softer manner. So can that be a model for anybody else? Can one use that as a model to impose their ways of doing on other, and constantly doing a kind of a chest thumping that this is my, this is our, this is what we are imposing on you? That is very harmful. Someday the reaction comes against that also. So when we see yogasana, so yoga can be global also. When we forcefully attach an identity first of Indian, because it has originated in India, then we try to also connect with Hinduism also, because many times we see that the Muslims are doing yoga. Now why should we say that all humans can do yoga? Are Muslims not humans? If dogs are doing yoga, then we can make a news item that dogs are also doing yoga, cats are doing yoga. But if Muslims or Christians are doing yoga, why should it be surprising? But as soon as we put a question or make that, and then we connect with soft power of India, and then we try to say that this is victory of India, victory of Hinduism, then it becomes problematic also. Then it starts becoming hegemonic in different ways. So that point we have to keep in mind, that the soft power should not be treated as a hegemonic structure to be imposed on other people or to be unnecessarily proud of one identity. But we need to change this language of what is the origin of country, of several such things, be it modern science or ancient therapeutic systems like Ayurveda or Yogasana also, and convert it into global things. These all are global things. It is for all the human beings. It is an ownership of everybody. Like heritage sites, we have lots of heritage sites, and now United Nations identify several things as heritage site. It means it is not yours now, it is world's. This property in your country is not your own, so you can't run a bulldozer over it. You can't make it new by recoloring or restructuring. It is world's heritage now. It is everybody's property. So that is where something needs to be turned into a global phenomenon also. Okay, the other presentations, Jyoti and Dhruvika also did well, and you brought good sources also for your presentations. The Khushi also presented well. Some of the words you need to check when you read. Okay. Jai also presented well on Chomsky's idea of a truly educated mind. Okay. Sanket also talked about media culture. And this, the reference of Sabarmati report, also it's again a example like a sword with a dual edge. So how you use that, there is always a harm that the user can kill itself also. Sword with dual edge means when you try to kill another person, there is a fear that you may kill yourself also with that. So how Sabarmati report is seen, that is itself is a narrative against another power. Now that itself is becoming a narrative of another power. So with the change of political powers in at the central government level in last 20 years, how the first decade of 21st century was reported or narrated in media, how the second decade is being seen, and they counter argue with each other also. So we need to bring Ulrich Beck's risk society here and say that you can't play like this. Like you also did this, so we are doing that. So the normal human beings will say, what about us? Two political parties keep on fighting with each other that this we are making the narrative, so now we are making the narrative. We are remaking or we are unmaking the narratives there. But the people will say that we were fooled then also, we are fooled again also. So how to come out from this risk society? That needs to be the concluding remarks. Kumkum on mediated lives, also well presented. Khushi Goswami on fandom culture. Taylor Swift and the Swifties. There are lots of fan following of Taylor Swift at a global level. Then Trupti on brands. There was a question that how in multicultural identity we look at consumer culture. Consumer culture itself is a separate cultural identity, and it crosses across all other identities. That's what several times we made this comment, that once you are a consumer, you don't remain black or white person. You do not remain Dalit or Savana. You don't remain women or men. All those identity markers are crossed by the new identity of consumer. Consumer means you have a credit card and you do not give a second thought before purchasing anything. You are a great consumer. You keep on shopping because you think that shopping is a therapy to get free from boredom, to change your mood. You go and do shopping because you have money. If you don't have cash money, you have a credit card and you are living a life on credits. So the people who live life on credit, udhari no jivan, a consumer જીવન માં ખૂબ ગમે કારણ કે એ માણસ બંધાયેલો રહેશે કે આટલા રૂપિયા ઉછીના લીધા છે એ ચૂકવવા માટે કંઈક કામ તો કરવું પડશે. સો એ પર્સન ક્યારેય રિવોલ્ટ નહીં કરે, એ ક્યારેય વિદ્રોહ નહીં કરે કારણ કે એને એ પેલું યાદ આવશે કે હજી કેટલા ઉછીના લીધે તો પેલા આપું પછી સમાજ સુધારવા જાઓ. So credit society running on the credit systems, on EMIs, that is very good for capitalist societies. They always want more and more such people who borrow the money and then enjoy the life. ઉછીનું કરીને પણ ઘી પીવે એવા લોકો કેપિટાલિસ્ટ સોસાયટીને ખૂબ ગમે, એટલે એક આખું જુદું જ કલ્ચર એનું બને જેમાં બીજા બધા જ કલ્ચર ડિઝોલ્વ થઈ જાય છે. Okay, we have seen Rutvi, Parthiv, this Krishna and Krupali also did good work by bringing in all this writers, photographs, the works. Also, we can visualize the difference on the facial features, and it helps us in identifying that how people are different. The races are different from their looks. Divya presented on this point of ecology, clarify this. Again, the question about like new historicism is a Western concept and how we apply. So some ideas needs to come out from the boundaries of East or West. They need to become global. That's how science normally tend to grow. Science do not have any national identity. It is for everybody, for all human beings. So new medicines, if they are invented, then it doesn't work only on black people or white people, or only on male or only on female. It works on everybody. So that is how we see that some such ideas should be for all humans, not for specific identities. Bhargav also presented well on the divine and the conflict between these two ideas, that how the new ecological ideas about science, and the science is telling us something about ecology, and then we have this ancient system of worshipping. So how we try to resolve between these two conflicting things. And last, Bhumi also we have discussed. So with you, your third season is ending now. Now you have one more season left in fourth semester. So you are now free, but from 13th you will have your exams also, written test. So wish you all the best for your written test, and those who are participating in youth festival, for you also, wish you all the best for as a volunteer, as an onlooker, or as an active participant. We end this session here.